Good afternoon. I would like to present a motion in accepting the agenda as is without the invocation.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. May I have a second?
So just to be clear, there's a motion on the table to approve the agenda without the invocation, and we don't hear a second. So take it away.
Thank you. Tonight's invocation will be given by Ms. Mosayed, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mr. Flores.
Dear Lord, we thank you for the ability to come before you with this commission. We invite you to be here with us this evening and to grant us wisdom with each case and situation that is presented before us tonight. In your name we pray.
Please stand. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands for a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, please announce any item you're recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard.
Chair and Commissioners, I need to recuse myself from section item number 1 as I live within 500 feet from this proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. And with that being said, Secretary, will you please conduct a roll call of the Planning Commission?
Sure. Commissioner Boado,
Present.
Commissioner Leon,
Present.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Mendez,
Present.
and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Present. Right, we will wait till Commissioner Mendez steps out for item number 1. Okay, and we will now begin with item number 1 on the agenda. At this time, I will open public hearing at 5:22 p.m. May we please have the staff report, Mr. Flores?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff, and public. For the record, my name is Adrian Flores, Associate Planner with City Bell Gardens Planning Division, and this presentation is to discuss Conditional Use Permit and Development Agreement 2023-077 as it relates to the City and Department of Cannabis Control storefront retail license request at 5726 Gage Avenue. The applicant, Tax Sato, representing Stizzy, is requesting that the Planning Commission, 1, determine the project categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to state CEQA guidelines, section 15061B3. 2, adopt a resolution PC 2024-06 approving conditional use permit number 2023-077 to authorize the cannabis retail use. And 3, recommend to the City Council approval of an ordinance to enter into and execute a development agreement with the applicant and property owner of the subject site to vest certain development rights in exchange for public benefits for up to 10 years. A little bit about the subject site. It's located within the MU mixed use zone with the land use designation of mixed use commercial and residential. To the immediate south, to the immediate north and south are sites also zoned mixed use, developed with residential uses. And to the east and west of the subject site are sites zoned MU, developed with restaurants and 1 residential use. No other existing cannabis retail uses exist within radius of 500 feet, nor were there any sensitive uses identified within 600 feet of the subject site. As seen in the above images, the upper from Gage Avenue and the below from the alley to the north, the current site conditions reflect the existing building that was previously occupied by a food market. However, according to city business license records, the commercial building has been vacant as of January of 2023. With the depicted site plan, note that the subject site is located on the south side of Gage Avenue. The existing structure is approximately 5,824 square feet and is located adjacent to the west property line of the subject site. Located east of the structure is the parking lot consisting of 9 automobile parking spaces, including 1 ADA space, and 16 bicycle parking spaces. While the Bell Gardens Municipal Code typically requires 12 automobile parking spaces for this uses on the site, the Bell Gardens Municipal Code also allows the substitution of 16 bicycle parking spaces in lieu of 4 automobile parking spaces. Lastly, ingress is provided via a one-way entry off Gage Avenue. And egress is provided to the public alley south of the subject site. So it'll be a one-way travel through the property for customers. The applicant's proposed contemporary storefront design that would comply with Bell Gardens development standards. The rendering shown here is for illustration purposes, and the applicant will file for a separate signage permit at a later date. The proposed 5,482 square foot suite for the proposed cannabis retail use would include 4 distinct spaces. 1, the retail area, 2, the office, 3, staff areas inclusive of an office, storage, vault, and lastly, vendor areas. If approved, conditions of approval would enforce security, age restrictions, and hours of operations requirements. Some of the information in regards to security, there will be at least 2 city security guards during operating hours with 24-hour access to security guards in the case that any incident were to occur during closed hours. Age restrictions, employees would be at least 21 years old. Patrons will be at least 21 years old as well, or 18 years old with a medical recommendation. The hours of operation are restricted from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with the last delivery to be placed by 9 p.m. Staff and the applicant have negotiated the terms of the development agreement. As proposed, the development agreement would vest the applicant's right for an initial 5-year term with an option to extend the agreement for a total of 10 years. If the applicant is not in default of the development agreement, the CUP or other applicable state and local ordinances and regulations. In return, the applicant would pay an annual community benefit upon the effective date of the DA of $100,000, which would be renewed every January. In addition, once the operations commence, the applicant would pay a quarterly community benefit equal to 7% of the gross receipts. The city and applicant are currently in agreement with all terms with the exception of the quarterly community benefit. Staff recommends 7% based on recent council actions to reduce the benefit rate for 2 other applicants that were just before this planning commission. However, the applicant is seeking a quarterly benefit rate of 6%. Now, the planning commission may recommend that the city council approve the DA as is, or recommend approval but with a different quarterly community benefit rate, and or provide recommendations on other terms, or recommend disapproval of the DA. %80 of all community benefits would be dedicated to the city youth and educational programs for the city housing programs. Benefits to be utilized for youth programming, after-school programs, sports programming, personal enrichment classes, or capital improvements on city-owned properties, and for housing programming and long-range planning, including but not limited to affordable housing, rent stabilization, and tenant protection efforts, and other planning efforts. The project meets requirements and included in Val Gardens Municipal Code, section 9.50.050, basis for approval or denial of a conditional use permit. And the project meets the requirements of section 9.20.160 of the Val Gardens Municipal Code, cannabis retail conditional use. Lastly, the proposed 4,650 square feet of retail space would provide for conditionally approved cannabis retail sales on site in a building proposed to be consistent with the development standards contained in Val Gardens Municipal Code, chapter 9.12, commercial zones. Now, lastly, it is staff's recommendation that the planning commission, 1, determine the project as category exempt. 2, approve the conditional use permit to a cannabis retail use at the subject site. And 3, recommend approval of an ordinance to enter into and execute a development agreement as shown in the agenda materials with the applicant. The applicant is present this evening and would like to share a prepared presentation during the public hearing testimony. Staff, city attorney, and the applicant are open to questions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. At this time, if the applicant would like to come to the podium and address to the planning commission.
Can you hear me? Good evening, Planning Commission, and thank you for allowing us to present tonight. My name is Cyrus Pai. I'm Director of Development for Stizzy Inc., the proposed cannabis business operator at 5726 East Gage Avenue in the community of Bell Gardens. Next slide, please. A little background on Stizzy. We're the largest cannabis operator in California by revenue, store count, and total cannabis operations. We are also the most experienced operator in California and have firsthand experience operating stores in a variety of locations from dense urban locations to more suburban communities. We are based in Southern California and currently operate 37 stores, 6 of which are in Los Angeles County. Next slide, please. A little background on our owners. Our founder, James Kim, is an Iraq War disabled veteran, and he founded our company in 2018 to help other veterans cope with PTSD and pain management. The president and co-owner of Stizzy, Tak Sato, has over 7 years of cannabis experience and background as an attorney, helps make sure that our operations are 100% compliant. Next slide, please. We are proud to be unionized with UFCW, and we're the first cannabis company to sign a global collective bargaining agreement with them. We are the largest cannabis employer in the state of California with 2,000 employees, and we will create at least 30 new jobs with the store. We provide full medical benefits and an employer pension fund to all our employees. Retail associates at this location will make between $1,850 to $2,450, with managers making between $70,000 to $80,000. We also provide workforce development classes to all our employees, which count towards college credits at accredited colleges in California. Next slide, please. We are requesting a conditional use permit with a development agreement for a cannabis retail storefront. The picture on the right of the slide shows context of our site in the neighborhood, with our project site highlighted in yellow. Directly adjacent to our proposed location is JB Burgers on one side and Pizza Hut on the other. As experienced cannabis operators, we spent a lot of time trying to find the right location that was conforming to the city's cannabis ordinance, in a commercial corridor, a standalone building with dedicated parking, and consistent with the intent of the city's general plan. And we found that at 5726 East Gage Avenue. The proposed project includes renovating the existing 4,615 square foot ground floor of the building, and we also plan to do lighting upgrades along with repainting the exterior and a new secure trash enclosure. Next slide, please. The retail floor is the only portion of the premises where customers will have access, as can be seen in the diagram on this slide. There is a significant back of house that includes an employee break room, separate security and management office, and secured inventory room. Before customers enter the premise, a security guard or employee will do a quick ID check. After that, the customer will get to the reception check-in area where their ID will be checked through a state compliance system. After that, they will be allowed to enter their sales floor, and proper line management will be used to optimize the sales floor. And once they arrive at a POS, a retail associate will assist them in making a purchase and check their ID one more time. At no time will customers be allowed to physically touch product until after a sale is made, as product is always behind secure glass enclosures. This design and procedure has led to zero thefts and compliance infractions from our retail stores during operational hours. Additional security measures include panic buttons throughout the premise and security cameras through the interior and exterior, and guards on the premise all times during operational hours. Both security and staff strictly enforce a no loitering policy, and since this is a standalone building that has dedicated parking, it'll be much easier to enforce. This also means that at no times will individuals be allowed on the premises unless they have the ability and intent to make a purchase at our storefront. Next slide, please. In addition to physical security upgrades that we will be doing, our security procedures are very similar to a bank. We have a very robust security process that we put in place to ensure no thefts and that customers and neighbors are safe. We will always have armed security on site during operational hours. Our camera system has up to 90-day playback, which law enforcement and regulators will always have access to. In addition, we have 24/7 CCTV monitoring off-site that helps augment our guard on the premises.
Hello, my name is Andrew De La Garza, and I'm the Development Associate at Steezy. Youth prevention is incredibly important to us. Oh, next slide. Sorry. Youth prevention is incredibly important to us, which is why we have been building a youth prevention program over the past 2 years. Our curriculum is backed by Stanford University research and has been piloted by both the Riverside County Sheriff's Association and the Boys and Girls Club. We are also very excited to be partnering with Healing Urban Barrios, a nonprofit that provides essential services to at-risk youth throughout California to further develop and roll out our curriculum at the YMCA. Next slide, please. At Steezy, forming strong local relationships is truly at the heart of what we do. That's why it was so important for us to meet our neighbors. We recently hosted an open house and sent bilingual invitations to all residents and businesses within 600 feet of our proposed location. As a result, we're thrilled to have received over 50 letters of support. As shown on the slide above, the purple X indicates our proposed property, and the green dots represent letters of support, many of which we received from our closest neighbors. I'd like to share some of the reasons why our neighbors are excited about Steezy potentially opening in their neighborhood. Gilbert Cisneros, who lives behind our building, mentioned how having 24/7 security would significantly improve his neighborhood. Maria Pascal, who lives directly across the street from us, would no longer have to drive to Maywood to pick up her medical cannabis. Additionally, we teamed up with our friends from Healing Urban Barrios for a neighborhood cleanup. 12 volunteers collected over 10 garbage bags of litter and debris, focusing on the areas of Gage, Ajax, Lubeck, and Eastern. Next slide, please. A main tenet of our ethos at Steezy is building lasting partnerships with local organizations in the neighborhoods in which we operate. We're proud to support the Bell Gardens Police Department with annual donations for both their Explorers program and their Officers Wellness program. We are also committed to making yearly contributions to the American Legion Post 465, and we are proud to be a founding member and the first corporation to join the Southeast LA Kiwanis Club. As previously stated, we are thrilled to partner with Healing Urban Barrios. It's through this partnership we were fortunate enough to meet the Alomar family at a recent expungement clinic we co-hosted. The Alomars are longtime residents of Bell Gardens and happen to live within blocks of our proposed location. This connection has allowed us to better understand and address the concerns and needs of our closest neighbors here in Bell Gardens. Thank you for your consideration, and we are here to answer any questions that you guys may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move over to commissioner questions and comments, and I would like to ask a question to the applicant. You're anticipating approximately 30 new jobs. Approximately what percentage of those jobs would be local hires? Any data would be helpful.
So we do find that a significant of our employees do live within a 3 mile radius of our stores. I think last we checked, the data was around 70%. Prior to opening up as well, we do hold a local job fair on site at our store. And we did actually get a lot of, like, through our open house, we did get a lot of contact information from individuals who were excited about the opportunity to apply. There's no like formal like number I can project here, but that's just how we run things.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for staff. Regarding the quarterly benefit rate, what was the rate the other two applicants had prior to this applicant?
So all other applicants, excuse me, Paloma McAvoy with City Attorney's Office. All other applicants that have been before the Planning Commission at this point agreed to a 10% quarterly community benefit. However, about 2 weeks ago, those two applicants that your commission already reviewed and recommended approval of, at the city council meeting, the city council actually moved to reduce the quarterly benefit rate to 7%. So in light of that, that is why staff is recommending 7%.
Yeah, thank you. Another question, if I may. For staff, I suppose. How far is this location from high school?
Is it understood that the location is not located within 1,500 feet from any high school? But we don't have the exact footage at this moment.
Okay, perfect. But it is on the main street, right, Gage? What type of advertising do you guys have constantly showing, like, the main street? Obviously you have to be advertising what you have, but what I'm getting at is, there's policies in place where we don't this is different, not the same product, but vaping, right? It's not allowed to be a certain flavor or advertise as something appealing that appeals to a certain age, right? What type of advertising do you guys have for the customers that you desire to obtain that wouldn't be appealing to younger crowds?
I'm Tox Sato, the applicant, owner and president of the company. And I can tell you that, at least as far as a storefront, we're not going to have any signs or names that would let people know that we are a cannabis company. We're just going to have the Stizzy sign. That's, first of all, one way to ensure that we don't attract people underage. And number two, as far as all our packaging and advertisement, we only advertise through channels such as Instagram and we only allow people to connect to our Instagram who have been verified as being over 21. And third, our main form of advertisement is actually to existing customers who have shopped at one of our other stores. What we do is when we take in customers, for example, at the downtown Los Angeles location, register at our to shop at our store, they can opt in through text messages or emails to receive advertisement. And the reason why we heavily lean on that is because that ensures that that person has been already identified as being over 21. And fourth, we have a very strict, very compliant compliance team that ensures that there are different regulations with regards to how we can advertise, the type of packaging that we can use under the Department of Cannabis Control rules. For example, we are not allowed to sell products that have animals on them, for example, and have certain types of words like candy, I believe. And so before we sell any single product on the store, we ensure that our compliance team makes sure that there's a checkbox and a compliance checklist to make sure that there's not a single violation or any other instances that may trip up these compliance requirements that strictly already prohibit advertising and selling products that are alluring to children.
Thank
you. Thank you very much. As we mentioned, our youth population, it was mentioned in the presentation that you work closely with organizations such as the YMCA. Bell Gardens here, we have a Boys and Girls Club. How does your organization provide support to these to the youth while not exposing them to your product or your business per se?
Yes, I can answer that as well. And so I think you bring up a really good point. We are not the ones that actually go in and interface directly with the YMCA children or the Boys and Girls children. What we do is we provide modules and educational materials, and we provide education to the YMCA staff and the Boys and Girls staff for them to be able to have the necessary tools and educational materials to teach the educational materials that we've developed with the help of Stanford University research. And so we make sure that it's a very sensitive topic for us, and it's a little bit inappropriate in my mind if we were the ones directly interfacing with them. So we provide the monetary and educational support for staff members of those organizations to teach those children.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do have a question. I think you covered this pretty well, but I know residents are really concerned about crime. We could once again just cover that as far as I believe you said there would be 2 security, both armed cameras, any other things you would like to share regarding that for public safety?
I mean, we also contract with patrol services as well. So there's always security on site's always augmented. At this location, we sometimes, when we do like an RFP out for security firms, we do that closer when we're opening. We do a pretty thorough job trying to interview companies where they have, local staff who know the neighborhood, things like that. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question, more directed towards staff, regarding the 80% of all, 80% of, will go towards the community and benefits, but it's not really broken down as to what's going to be going towards youth education versus housing programs. Who did those percentages? Who's at the discretion of those of dictating those percentages? And then the other 20%, where is that going?
That's a good question. I can answer that, Commissioner. So when the cannabis ordinance was first being adopted, the city council also adopted development agreement procedures, and the development agreement procedures pursuant to council direction required that 80% of those funds go to the housing and recreational educational programs that you referenced. At the time, we left it a little bit broad, so that way the city has the ability to be able to plug in the money into the appropriate funds. So for example, there may be a capital improvement project that may need gap funding. The city council may use those funds for something like that. I know there's been discussion about an affordable housing task force or commission. Funds could potentially be used for that. But any of the funding would have to be approved through council. The other 20% would go into the general fund and would likely be used to enforce the terms of will go into the general fund. I can't opine on how it would otherwise be used.
Thank you very much.
This question is directed towards the applicant. Regarding public benefit programs, you mentioned that American Legion is very veteran owned, and can you talk about collaborations with veteran related organizations? I see that American Legion Post 465 of Bell Gardens submitted a letter of support. Can you talk more about how STIIIZY collaborates with such organizations?
Yes, thank you. So I think as Cyrus mentioned, my partner and founder, James Kim, is a disabled veteran who served in Iraq under the 101st Airborne. And so one of our main ethos is supporting veterans and veterans causes. For example, a couple examples. One is, for example, an organization called Weed for Warriors. And what we do with them is we provide very big discounts, and sometimes to the extent permissible by municipal and Department of Cannabis Control rules, donations in the form of medical cannabis to that organization. Other times we've partnered with organizations like the American Legion and other organizations to prioritize having them become employees. And so we also, I think, as Cyrus might have mentioned, that we are vertically integrated, meaning that we have manufacturing, cultivation, and distribution. And so we have a decent number of veterans who we hired from these various organizations that help connect veterans with employers.
Thank you. This application in particular is, surrounded by restaurant and residential areas. Given its diversity, how would you compare it with other Stizzy locations?
I would say that it's pretty similar to our other locations. For example, in Suisun City, up north, we are abutting a residential. We are in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and we are actually have boundaries next to a house. And so, what we've done in the past, and what we did with our neighbor in Suisun City, is we worked closely with them to hear their concerns. And this particular individual had concerns about the security, and so we actually, out of our own pocket, helped construct a more secure and higher fence to separate our property and his property. We also installed a camera system, which also covers his property, that we are also keeping watch of through our 24-hour security monitoring. And so I think there are a few other locations which are very close to residential areas. And I think our experience has taught us that communication and getting to understand their concerns, and really understanding that it's a privilege to be next to a residential area, and kind of, for lack of a better word, we try to bend over backwards to really accommodate their concerns, because as anyone who has a house, it can be daunting to be close to any kind of business.
Thank you for that. And with that, a follow-up question. Odor mitigation is a common topic that's brought up upon the folks in our community. What measures would be taken to prevent that concern from constantly occurring?
Sure. And I think the most important method from practical experience is ensuring two things. One, that all the products are properly sealed, because especially if you think about it, a lot of the products like edibles and the oils really don't have any smell unless someone is consuming, which they're not allowed to do. And so it's really the packaging of the flower that really I feel like other stores and other operators have failed at. I think it's our compliance and our inventory team is required to check every morning that any products that contain raw flower are properly sealed and packaged. So that's one step. The second step, as I mentioned, is the consumption. We have our security guards, supplemented by the camera systems, do perimeter walks to make sure that there are no loiterers and anyone else consuming the products after they purchase them. And so those two practical things have a huge effect. And third, we do have a state-of-the-art carbon filtration system used at cigar lounges and other types of establishments. that that I think is top of the line, that actually ensures that a lot of the smell is actually prevented from going to neighbors and other people around the area.
And this upcoming question is more from the planning perspective. Do any of your other locations have, two stories, similar to this one?
Yes, I believe, yes. So I believe Pomona actually has a second story, but that particular location, we use the second story only for educational training.
Thank you for that. And the main purpose of the second floor, for this application would be for exactly what?
Yeah, so we're not using the second store will just be used as storage. It's not part of our like project.
And in terms of storage, do you refer to like a product?
No, it's just that's what it's classified under, like the development code, I'd say, but it's not, we aren't like using it for the purposes of our business, because we're just leasing the premises or leasing the building.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. And that concludes my questions. Commissioners, any other questions?
Not at this time.
None on my end.
No.
Chair De La Rosa, this is Stephen Jones, City Planner. Just to follow up on Commissioner Ramirez's question about the Bell Gardens High School distance, very crude measurement shows about 1,800 square feet approximately. Linear, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. We will now open, if there's no objection by the Planning Commission, we will now open public comments for this item. Secretary, will you please announce the instructions for public participation?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 1. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. We did receive a few comment cards, Chairperson. I'll go ahead and hand them over.
Thank you. Okay, may we have Fabian Alomar come up to the podium?
Hello, my name is Fabian Alomar, and I'm a working actor and professional skateboarder and a youth mentor and counselor at the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, ARC. It's one of the biggest reentry organizations in California, and I'm formerly incarcerated as well. And I have been doing social impact work in Los Angeles for the past few years. I do annual turkey drives and backpack drives and other events in LA. My family lives right down the street from the proposed Steezy location on Ajax, and we've been living there for the past 17 years. You know, my connection to corporate cannabis is through Steezy. They've been supporting my annual Thanksgiving turkey drives and backpack drives in Echo Park, and we just recently worked on an expungement clinic in Lincoln Heights. We invited the community to get their records cleared and provided second chance employment opportunities in the neighborhood and in cannabis. I'm excited that the city council is planning the commission, and that the city council and the planning commission approved the cannabis ordinance, because it gives the city of Bell Gardens and of LA opportunities to bring companies like Steezy, who offer second and third chances, because I come from second and third chances as well. And to give back to the community and actually work with people in the communities that they operate in. And like, I think it's a golden idea, man. It like really, like I come from this area and I come from that lifestyle, you know? My father, he's been living in the area for a long time, and I just think it's a golden opportunity for someone who comes out to and not even have to be incarcerated, but for anyone looking for a job in this community, I think it's a golden opportunity, you know, to find employment. And, you know, I come from that and I know what it is. And not everybody's just lucky to have a job in Hollywood as an actor. And I know it's a golden opportunity for like even people in my community and family. So, you know, I'm excited for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alomar. And we have Eve Zimmerman come to the podium. And this would be in regards to item 1 only.
Usually have something else to help me, but she's the best. I'm not against cannabis, the use of cannabis for medical and even for to help people relax that have bad nerves. I mean, doctors know these things can be very good for people. But I have heard that around cannabis places, there's more car wrecks. In fact, they even run into the cannabis place, the ones that have a drive-through. They just run right into them. And the other ones that have the parking that go towards the cannabis place, they changed the parking because they kept running into the place. That's kind of unusual. I hope you can hear me. And so I think it's something to be considered, because I don't think like alcohol, which they can check your breath, your blood, and even the way you walk. They can't do that with cannabis. A person can get into a wreck and there is no yardstick of how much that person had and how much it's going to affect the driving in our situation all around there. And then, you know, so I think that has no, if it has been settled, maybe even you would know. You might know if have they ever got a yardstick for safe driving with cannabis?
Ms.
I know it's
Zimmerman,
just up in the air, kind of. And I'm not saying it's wrong to use it, but they have more wrecks.
Ms. Zimmerman, sorry to interrupt, but you may direct the comments.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
I thought maybe he could answer it. That's why I turned to him.
thank you.
I know that many things can be used as medicine, even for people's nerves. I understand them. And it could be very good for a person. But anyway, that is a real concern. They've had it on the news, how there's more wrecks close to a cannabis place. So if they don't use right there, which I'm sure they don't let them, they soon do, just as soon as they drive away, you know, and they're kind of, who knows how it's hitting their system, causing these wrecks. So it's something to think about. And let me see, do we? Yeah, and can I remember? That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
for your
Ms. Zimmerman.
time. I hope you really think about what I said.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. If there's no objection by the Planning Commission, I will now close public participation. But before that, are there any comments via the online chat
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, I wanted to just see if there was anyone in the chat line wishing to speak on this item. If so, you may unmute yourself at this time. Chairperson, it looks like there's no one in the chat line wishing to speak on this item. But I did want to mention that we did receive numerous email comments in favor to get this item approved. And all those email comments were distributed to each planning commissioner. Just wanted to mention that for the record.
Thank you so much. I do have a question directed to staff and the applicant if they're able to answer it. But in regards to Ms. Zimmerman's question, is there any way to measure, you know, how much under the influence someone is, you know, to cannabis in case there is, you know, some sort of, you know, stoppage by police or, you know, in similar incidents as she has mentioned, you know, vehicle accidents. And to the applicant, would this location have any protection to protect the property, you know, from any possible vehicle impacts into the building? But I know those are two separate questions, but yeah, I would appreciate a response.
Yes, I know that researchers are working with, for example, the LACHP, the California CHP, to come up with a system to be able to measure the levels of THC that people are driving under. I know that, for example, they're looking into drawing blood if anyone is suspected of driving under the influence, which would detect amounts of marijuana. But to my knowledge, it's a work in progress, and there's still not a uniform way for the police or the sheriff to conduct the DUI, you know, alcohol type tests like the breathalyzer tests that have been approved by the state or the city. I do know that that the police, they are able to use other aspects of an instance of pulling someone over. For example, whether the person has glassy eyes, slurred speech, if there's marijuana that can be smelled, all those things can be used to charge someone with driving under the influence, despite not having the equivalent of a breathalyzer. No, let Cyrus speak to the bollards and whatnot.
Yeah, so we do what's we call hardening of the property, where we'll do physical security upgrades. This includes scissor gates at ingress egress points. We have a secured inventory room that has vault-like standards. You know, product there isn't left overnight. And then we put bollards in as well to help that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope that answered Ms. Zimmerman's questions.
If you don't mind, can staff pull up the image of the building that shows where the customers will be allowed? I think that showed a representation of exposure of like potential car running into the building to do what they, you know, do in those instances.
Give me one moment, I'll pull it up. Is this the diagram you're referring to, Commissioner?
There's one that shows a clear indication of where customers are allowed.
You may be referencing the applicant's presentation. Let me pull that up right now.
Please.
Is this the one you're referring to, Commissioner?
Yes. The wall, the northern wall, is that to understand that that's the wall that's facing the parking lot, or is the other one facing the parking lot? The majority of the parking lot, of course.
The northern wall is, there's no setback and that's right next to JB Burger. Actually, no, the northern wall, no, that on
That's
that
the
side, yeah,
parking
yeah,
lot,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right up to the public right away.
Okay, perfect. So are those the walls that you're considering reinforcing, the ones that have obviously access to a vehicle through their drive-by?
Because that's right to the public right away, right? We can't restrict pedestrian access right there. And we're working with the existing building. So it would be kind of by the customer ingress egress point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And this question is directed to the applicant. I see that there's quite a lot of emails in support of this item. May I ask how the canvassing was done? For example, how were the members of the public approached? I do see that they have like some comments, but I do see that the content itself from the emails are pretty much the same. So I would just like to know how the canvassing was done.
So about a week before the open house that we held on May 16th, we sent flyers out to everyone within a 600-foot radius. And they were both bilingual. I think that helped a lot within the community there. And then people came out, people brought friends. We also had a banner up as well. So we were extremely visible in the corridor, and people came by, and they, we talked with them, and we just told them what we were doing or what we're trying to do, and they were generally supportive.
And I can speak to the similarities in some of the emails. My understanding is a lot of people, they're in a rush and don't have the time to actually put together a lengthy letter of support. And so I believe there were 3 or 4 options. If they were in a hurry, they can choose from a certain, I think, rather, for lack of a better word, a template that we had expressing their support, and then they would just sign it. They would read it and sign it and send it.
Thank you so much. That concludes my questions and comments, commissioners.
No more at this time. Thank you.
I'm good on my end.
I'm good, thanks.
Well, good. If there are no objections by the planning commission, I will close public hearing at 6:12. With that being said, may I have a motion in regards to staff's recommendation and as noted in the staff report and presentation?
Motion to approve item number 1 as it's written by staff.
Thank
I
you.
second that motion.
If I may, Chair. So there's 3 points in the staff's report. So is your motion only 1?
Motion to approve item number 1 as a whole for all 3.
Oh, item 1, all 3. Very good. Thank you so much for clarifying.
Thank you very much. May I have a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, Planning Secretary?
Sure. That would be Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Abstain?
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
and Vice Chairperson Mendez also will need to abstain, and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes.
With that said, the motion is 3-1-1, 3-2. 3 yes, 2 abstaining. Motion passes.
All right, we will now begin with item number 2 on the agenda. At this time, I will open public hearing at 6:13 p.m. May we please have the staff
Chair-
report?
Chairperson, if I may, I'm just gonna go get Vice Chairperson Mendez.
Correct, yes, please.
And Chair, while we wait, the last day to appeal this item is Monday, July 8th, 5:00 p.m. here in City Hall.
We will now
Okay, we
be,
may proceed.
thank you, Erica. We will now begin with item number 2 on the agenda. At this time, I will open public hearing at 6:17, but before that, we may have a comment by a planning commissioner. That is reserved for item number 3. May we please have the staff report, Ms. Musayab?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff, and public. For the record, my name is Mona Mosayeb, Associate Planner with the Bell Gardens Planning Division. And this presentation is to discuss conditional use permit and development agreement 2024-006 as it relates to the city and the Department of Cannabis Control storefront retail license request at 7601 Eastern Avenue. The applicant, BG Flower LLC, represented by Aram Ekemyan, is requesting that the Planning Commission determine the project categorically exempt based on the common sense categories from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to State CEQA Guidelines Section 15061B3. Second, approval of a conditional use permit authorizing a cannabis retail use in a 4,783 square foot suite within a commercial and office building to be built at the subject site. And third, recommend to the City Council approval of an ordinance to enter into and execute a development agreement with the applicant and property owner, who are both represented by the same person, as prepared by staff, to vest certain development rights in exchange for public benefits for up to 10 years. The site is located at 7601 Eastern Avenue. It is zoned C4 heavy commercial and has a land use designation of RC, regional commercial. The subject site is 24,571 square feet with surrounding uses of C4 on the north, east, and south, containing parking, medical, and commercial uses, C4 zoned on the west with an office use. Within the 600-foot radius, there are no sensitive uses. The current site conditions show a vacant lot ready for development. The city previously approved a development of a 2-story office and commercial building at the subject site. This was done through variance 2022-022. The proposed cannabis retail use would occupy a 4,783 square foot commercial suite on the first floor with access from Priory Street, shown in these 2 arrows. Within the suite, approximately 3,500 square feet would be dedicated to retail use, as shown in this in this green highlighted section. Also included in the 4,783 square feet area are staff and storage areas, a limited access area, staff restroom, and public restrooms. If approved, conditions of approval would address issues such as, but not limited to, operations and maintenance of the site, security, age restrictions, and hours of operation. As shown here, hours of operations would be consistent, open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with a last delivery of 9 p.m. Similar to other applicants, employees must be at least 21 years old, patrons at least 21 years old, 18 with a medical recommendation, with 24-hour security. Staff and the applicant have negotiated the terms of the development agreement. However, the city and the applicant remain at an impasse on a number of terms, which will be discussed in the upcoming slides. Staff recommends approval of the development agreement contained within the staff materials that would provide an initial 5 years term, subject to an option to extend for another 5 years for a total of 10 years. In return, The applicant would provide an annual community benefit in the amount of 100,000 per year, renewed every January. And the applicant would also be required to pay a quarterly community benefit equal to 7% of gross receipts. The applicant is requesting the following revisions to the city attorney proposed DA. Removal of the property owner, the applicant, as a signatory to the development agreement. An automatic extension of the development agreement for an additional 5-year term. And removal of the city's ability to review the operator's compliance. Proposed to revise the initial 100,000 annual community benefit to be prorated depending upon when the initial contribution is made. Reduced rate of the quarterly community benefits from 10% to 6% of gross receipt. Revisions to pare down the definition of gross receipts, which ultimately determines the rate of quarterly community benefits. Revises the ability to terminate the DA if the developer fails to commence operations within 12 months of project construction to permit up to 24 months to commence operations after construction is complete. Revises the operator's responsibility to provide tax filings and quarterly reports and requires the city to request these reports. Deletes the requirement to keep records consistent with state law requirements. Strikes language that would make a lien on the DA superior to any other lien on the title. Revises annual review requirements to only require planning commission review in the event that the operator is in default. Revises that the operator's duties to pay for the cost recovery under annual review if the operator is in default of the DA. Deletes the requirement for an deletes the requirement for an assignment of rights or interest under interest under the DA to be approved by the city council. Deletes language that informs any subsequent property owner of constructive notice and acceptance of duties and obligations under the DA. Deletes the provision that holds the operator and property owner jointly and severably liable under the DA, and deletes language that would make the DA binding on any successor in interest. The proposed development agreement. 80% of all community benefits would be dedicated toward the city's youth and educational programming and for the city's housing program. Benefits to be utilized for youth programming, after-school programs, sports programming, personal achievement classes, or capital improvements on city-owned properties, and housing programs and long-range planning, including but not limited to affordable housing, rent stabilization, and tenant protection efforts and other planning efforts. At the regularly scheduled City Council meeting of June 10th, 2024, the City Council considered 2 DAs for 2 other applications and approved a quarterly community benefit rate of 7%. Based on those actions, this would require that the applicant pay a quarterly community benefit rate equal to 7% of gross receipts. The Planning Commission may recommend that the City Council approve the DA as is, recommend approval but with a different recommended terms, or recommend disapproval of the DA. The applicant's CUP request is consistent with the City of Bell Gardens General Plan, Land Use Policy 3, Land Use Policy 4, and Land Use Policy 5. The project meets the requirements of Bell Gardens Section 9.50.050, basis for approval or denial of a conditional use permit. The project meets the requirements of Section 9.20.160 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code pertaining to cannabis retail conditional use. The proposed 4,783 square foot retail space would provide for a conditionally approved cannabis retail sales on site in a building proposed to be consistent with the development standards contained in Bell Gardens Municipal Code, Chapter 9.12. The proposed cannabis retail use would be conditionally permitted in a 4,783 square foot retail space in an office and commercial building would be consistent with the development standards. The development agreement as negotiated by staff, thus the right to operate a cannabis retail facility in exchange for community's benefits, including the funding for city's housing and youth programs for up to 10 years. Staff believes that the proposed development agreement, as negotiated and prepared by staff, is in the best interests of the city, while still providing the applicant the assurances and certainties that are typically sought under a DA. The Planning Commission may recommend that the City Council approve the DA as is, recommend approval but with different terms, or recommend disapproval of the DA. Recommendation. 1, determine that the project is categorically exempt based on the common sense categories provided from the provisions of CEQA pursuant state CEQA guidelines. 2, approval of a conditional use permit authorizing a cannabis retail use in a 4,783 square foot suite of a commercial and office building to be developed at the subject site. 3rd, recommend to the City Council approval of an ordinance to enter into and execute a development agreement as prepared by staff to establish certain development rights in exchange for public benefits for up to 10 years. The applicant is present this evening and would like to share a prepared presentation during the public hearing testimony. Staff, city attorney, and applicant are available and open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Musayab. At this time, if the applicant would like to come over to the podium, they may do so.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you very much for having us tonight. Waiting for my presentation to pop up, sorry. Okay, so just wanted to explain a little about ourselves. We're a Kush company. Can we go on to the next slide, please? We're one of the original cannabis cultivators in California. We're vertically integrated. We have a vast distribution network all over California since the inception of recreational cannabis. We have a large cultivation facility locally. It's approximately a mile away from the city. We are a boutique operator. We're family owned. We strive on the best quality of cannabis. We have never failed testing in terms of the laboratory mandated testing from the state in over 5 years, which to be honest, many operators fail to do so. We have won over 5 awards in the last year in cannabis in various competitions. We are mostly known for our OG. And the OG is, as people know, the original cannabis strain. It is the most sought excuse me. It is the most in demand cannabis strain because of the effects it gives. Our management team has great experience in the retail space and in distribution, cultivation, in all aspects of the industry from seed to sale. Next slide, please. In the 5 years that we've operated in the city of Montebello as a cultivation facility, which is the most heaviest use, it is, if not done correctly, it can produce an odor that certain individuals might not appreciate or like. However, we are in a business park with 17 other units, and all of our units are conjoined one to the other. We share common walls, and our neighbors have never submitted a complaint. We've never had an issue with the city or the state due to the odor management practices that we have installed in the facility. We have a local hiring policy that we've been quite successful with, and we would want to put in Bell Gardens, which the goal is to have over 50% of the employees to be within 5 miles of the business. And to provide them competitive wages of average of $25 an hour. We also want to make a dent in the community to make sure that we are intertwined with the community, and if there's any complaints, we have an open door policy. You can walk up, you can talk to us, ask for a manager. If there's an issue, we'll try to solve it as soon as possible. And that's why we find it very important to support programs in the city. So one of them is the American Legion, which we're looking to set up a meeting to discuss how we can work together and hopefully support them. And also we plan on giving military and military servicemen and veteran discounts of 10%. We also would like to support the Saudi Leadership Network, which provide for arts and crafts in the city of Bell Gardens, as we believe that art is something that all cities should promote as it beautifies the city. We also will have 24-hour security. Whether we're open or closed, there will be a security guard present to ensure that there's no issues. And same with the community liaison, which will be present and can be contacted at any time in the night. We will also have quarterly educational classes to ensure that the public is aware of how to safely use and ingest cannabis and various different types of cannabis and the effects that they provide. Next slide. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know. The only things that I would like to bring up, just so I expect that there might be some questions, is I do not believe we're at an impasse with the city. As 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the city staff, and the meeting ended with the city's city manager and the city attorney telling me that they will get back to me with whatever we discussed and seeing what the next steps are. And I'm still waiting for that. Just wanted to say, based on what was provided in the proposed revisions, we agree with the city on the 100,000 and the 7%. We are not sticking to the 6%. And the proration of the 100,000, it is our understanding that the city also city's understanding of the proration and ours might be in conflict, but in reality, I think we just didn't understand each other. As long as the 100,000, once it's paid, the next 100,000 is exactly 365 days later. We're fine with it. The only reason why we included a proration was in the circumstance of us having to pay it on December 5th. We don't want to pay it again on January 1st. So that's the only reason why we wanted to make sure. And I believe with a discussion with Mr. Gus Romo, we cleared that up. And close to half of the revisions, I believe we can take care of. So if you have any questions, thank you so much for your time. Please let me know.
Thank you very much. I do have a question directed towards you. What is the rationale behind the proposal to remove the property owner as a signatory to the development agreement?
So on a side note, I am also an attorney, and I have seen many community development agreements, and I've never seen the property owner sign. The property owner is a signatory who has no control over anything that happens in the agreement. They're just liable for anything that goes wrong. So it's completely unfair and they have no control over what happens to it. But in my circumstance, the issue is the following. If the property owner signs, the city is gonna have a recorded lien on the property. And my concern is being able to receive a loan on the property, potentially a construction loan or any other type of loan on the property to be able to provide for funding of any time that there's need for so. Also, it's it's as if the property owner will be some handcuffed. Don't mean it, it's more of euphemistically. Because if the property owner has this recorded lien, any businessman that's buying this property, once they do their title report, see that there's this lien on it, and once they see what the development agreement entails, no one will potentially buy the property because they can be on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars because they signed this agreement, because it binds the successors as well, whoever it becomes the property owner. So imagine you're buying the property and it's great property, everything's wonderful. However, you're agreeing to take on any liability with the city any liability that the tenant may have with the city. And that's not fair for any future buyer of the property or even the current owner of the property. It encumbers the property in a way that does not allow the property owner to have flexibility if it needs to.
Just a follow-up question to that. Have you seen any other cash company establishments with a similar how should I say this, with similar verbiage on the development agreements or such?
So the development agreement we signed with the city of Montebello, the property owner did not sign and was not part of the agreement in any way. The only way is by showing that they have a lease and they can operate on that property.
And another question in regards to the proposed revisions. Why is it that you propose that, we pare down the definition of gross receipts? I think that's critical, to calculate, quarterly community benefits and such. And I think it's in the best interest of the community to actually, get those reports and ultimately, see that transparency, being in place.
So the quarterly gross receipts, what we're requesting is a quarterly gross receipts that more aligns with the CDTFA, which is the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and what their definition of the gross receipts is, because they're the ones who collect cannabis excise tax. So my understanding would be they are the experts in the field, and when you look at their definition, it doesn't include many things that the city's definition of gross receipts includes. For instance, merchandise. If someone walks into the store, buys a t-shirt, they're going to be paying municipal tax on it. So if someone walks in, gets a water bottle, gets a t-shirt, and they're paying a cannabis tax on it, it just doesn't make sense to me. We're paying tax based on cannabis. That's why we're here today. If we were here for water bottles, t-shirts, and hoodies, we would just open up a separate unit and we would sell t-shirts, water bottles, and hoodies, have a general convenience store or whatever you want to call it, but not pay 7% tax. So someone who walks in, buys that, is paying an extra 7% just for that. And there's also other things that are added to the gross receipts definition that have absolutely nothing to do with cannabis. It's not in front of me, but I believe stocks and any type of rent that's collected and all of these things that do not have anything to do with cannabis. The definition was a definition that's used by, I believe, the Franchise Tax Board, which is about general gross receipts of a business. However, we're here for cannabis, and I feel that a gross receipts that's more tailored to the specific of cannabis would be more appropriate.
Question for the applicant. If someone goes into your store and buys a cannabis sweater with your brand on it, do you not benefit from that directly? And does your store not benefit from the advertising of that purchase?
Yes, and we pay a sales and use tax off of that, which goes to the city and the state.
And because it is cannabis, like all the revisions that you're asking, I almost want you to go one by one on them, because
Sure.
it seems like this is you're the only applicant so far that, maybe you have real justification for going into all these revisions, but I just think that because you're asking for all of this, I think we need to dedicate a good amount of time to understanding why and how this affects your business, right? And not just a one slide to say, hey, you're requesting all these things. So we can allocate time now, or we can revise it and come to it later time. But all these revisions, if you really want us to consider these, I think we need to table it for another time.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of revisions, and technically like Commissioner Ramirez mentioned, we could go one by one through each of these, but I think this is quite a lot, and most of these revisions are concerning to an extent. For example, proposing to delete the requirement to keep our records consistent with state law. That's also,
Can I speak up on that?
yeah, please.
I don't know why that was phrased that way. It's that, I'm sorry, but that's implying something that obviously is very inaccurate. We're not deleting the requirement to keep records consistent with state law requirements. Obviously, we will follow state law requirements. There's no question about that. So I don't know why that was specifically written like that. And I would like to speak to the city attorney about that in another meeting, but that's not accurate.
Right, yeah, that like stood out to me quite a lot. And and I have another question, but this is more in regards to like development. On average, approximately how long does it take to build a site? If you have that number.
So when it comes to predicting something that's not completely in my hands, it's hard to do so, and because of the fact that we're looking at plans that are going to be submitted, and there's numerous engineers, architects, city reviewers, this entire process that I had with the city attorney, the city manager as well, where sometimes getting a permit to change your window can take months, So once we get the building permits and it's all on me, I predict to be done within 6 to 8 months because it's in my hands.
Gotcha. 6 to 8 months. And that brings me to the next question, which is the request to
Chairman De La Rosa. Paloma McAvoy, City Attorney's Office. I want to clarify a few things, but I do want to start with this last term. The DA as it's currently written and before you today and has been approved with the other applicants, or recommended by your body as it relates to the applicants, the other applicants, requires for operations to commence within 12 months of building construction. So a little different than I think what was being represented, which is I believe there's some conflation about needing to obtain a building permit. The DA does not impose any sort of limitation on when to obtain the building permit, but it does require the operator to commence operations within 12 months after the construction is complete. And if you wouldn't mind, I would like to point out a few other things, if that's all right.
That would be great, because that was actually going to be my next question. Is it after construction, or is it after signing the DA and then so. forth.
No, it's after construction, so it would allow, the applicant to be able to construct the project, understanding that obviously sometimes plan check can take some time, in terms of needing to make revisions and ensuring that everything is in compliance with the building code, and other requirements that the city has to look at when something is in plan check. I do want to also address a representation that was made that we are not at an impasse. We did sit down with the applicant, not just myself. There's a lot of finger pointing to the city attorney's office, but development agreement procedures do include the city manager, community development, and the city attorney's office. There was a meeting that took place, an in-person meeting that took place about 3 weeks ago with the city manager, senior planner, and myself. We went through each of the revisions line by line. There were some instances in which the city did agree to make some revisions and some amendments and some other proposed language. However, as it relates to the remainder of the terms, the city did express that it was going to be bringing the DA that you see before you today, and that we would inform the the planning commission of the revisions that were outstanding and still proposed, so that you were all aware of what the applicant's additional requests were. Similarly, we did this with Steezy, but at the end of the day, we're in agreement with all terms, with the exception of the quarterly community benefit rate. So just, I think what you're seeing is essentially just an impasse. We had an impasse with one term as it related to the last applicant, and this one still has a number of terms where there is an impasse. I would like to also address the requirement or the deletion of the term in the DA to keep all records. That is standard language. It is a term of the DA. We want to make sure that those records are accurately kept. And we want to also ensure that that is something that the city is able to monitor in the DA, as opposed to relying on the state to enforce those terms. So that's the difference there. And I'm very pleased to hear that obviously the applicant intends to comply with state law, but adding this term within the DA gives the city a little bit more coverage in terms of the information that they're receiving from an operator. Lastly, I also, three more things as it relates to the lien. And I think you can also make some connections to including the property owner into the DA. As it relates to the lien would only be placed if there was an instance in which the operator was not paying their community benefits. We would not have a reason to have a lien on the property otherwise, and that's why that language is in there. We do put it superior to a mortgage because mortgages are very big. Community benefits would probably be a lot smaller by comparison. As you see before you, community benefits would be an $100,000 annual benefit, and then quarterly benefits based on gross receipts. Moving on to the discussion regarding gross receipts. There is a disagreement about how much or what the definition of gross receipts should be. Many cities include a definition of gross receipts that is very similar to what you see before you today. All of the other applicants have agreed to the definition of gross receipts that's before you in the DA right now. Ultimately, the excise tax definition is different, but we have explained to the applicant that the city is using the more inclusive gross receipts definition, which is consistent with practices in many other cities, including the taxation of merchandise. Next, as it relates to
May I interject, Ms. McAvoy?
Yes.
So Lloyd Pilchin, my colleague, Ms. McAvoy, were colleagues. So just to back up the point about the lien and the owner participating in it. So the owner itself has the choice whether to sign the agreement or not. So there won't be a development agreement if the owner doesn't sign, which means that they're accepting those terms. So this is not the lien. The business about the lien is not something that's being imposed on an owner against their will. That if they are opposed to it, they'll be telling you that the applicant, that they won't be participating in this. That's all. It's an agreement that means all the parties when it's signed by everyone, all the parties are in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pilchin. Yes, no, and I'm in agreement with everything that Mr. Pilchin just said. I also want to point out that in this instance, the property owner and the managing member of the property owner LLC, as well as the managing member of the applicant LLC, are both one and the same. So typically, development agreements will impose liability on both parties, because when you have an LLC stands for limited liability corporation. So this terminology is included in here in order to protect the best interests of the city. If an LLC folds up, we still have the opportunity to go after the property owner.
And may I add one more thing, which is to the planning commission, if there's concern about, well, boy, this is being negotiated, do we, the planning commission, now have to step in and resolve each one of these points? I just want to reassure the planning commission that when it comes to the development agreement, the DA, the planning commission's action is merely to make a recommendation. So if the regardless of whether the planning commission makes a recommendation to go with staff's proposal, staff's recommendation, or to change it to the applicant's proposal, either way, the city council will be the ultimate decider. So it's really, you're just moving it forward to the city council. Thank you.
If I may, it just seems that whatever we're recommending, if it's either staff's recommendation or the applicant's recommendation, it would seem that it's pretty unclear as to what we're recommending at all. Because there are still ongoing conversations about the agreements or what is determined. So it just seems like we're recommending that something go forward that we don't know really what it's about. If you
Commissioner, if I may, just as a point of clarification, staff negotiations are done at this point. The agreement is before you. There, as I said, or as Mr. Pilchin just said, at this point, as it relates to the development agreement, you can recommend approval with the development agreement that is before you today. You can recommend to the city council to approve a DA, perhaps with some different condition or different terms than what is before you today. Or you could recommend not to approve a DA. But I do want to make sure that everybody is clear that the recommendation would be as to the DA that is before you today. But because we're in disagreement on some of these terms, we have extended the courtesy of informing the planning commission that these are sticking terms that that we were not able to come to an agreement on. So, but I do want to be clear that those negotiations at this point are done because the agreement is now before the body.
I appreciate the clarification, and if you may clarify just a bit more, the recommendations from staff, are they the same as they were for Steezy and the two applicants prior to that?
Yes, so there are some minor differences, but overall, all four DAs are essentially the same. So as to the terms that we are not in agreement on, those terms are all within the other DAs or use the language that was originally proposed in other DAs.
And Commissioner, this is Gus Romo. If I may add, the applicant did have the opportunity to continue negotiating, as he had put, he wanted to continue negotiating, but it would not have come to this meeting. So we indicated to him that in order to come to this meeting, we had the terms, and as our attorneys were saying, these are the terms that staff is recommending. Even if we go forward and continue this or go on, staff is not looking to change the terms. We want to be consistent with all applicants, and we want to move forward. And the applicant had agreed that he wanted to come to this meeting. So with that said, I don't believe that continuation or tabling this item is going to change staff's recommendation.
Thank you very much.
What were the minor differences that were mentioned right now?
So in some instances, and I do recall I just don't have every agreement and before me right now. In one instance, the opportunity to cure default was extended, I believe, from 45 days to 90 days. There was also some language that would allow for operations to cease for a limited amount of time in the event of, in the event of unexpected events that basically forces the operator to cease operations for some time. What some of these terms, what they really end up trying to get to the heart of is trying to ensure that these operators are actually operating and generating revenue for the city. Because if the operators are not operating, they are not making sales, we are not getting gross receipts, and the city is not taking in revenue.
And I just wanted some clarification. So it seems like this location's a new construction compared to all the other sites that we've been looking at. So it makes it a little bit more complicated. Number two, I just want to clarify as well. So the property owner and operator are the same. Is that correct?
They have the same managing member. And I will tell you that another applicant, the first applicant that came before you, Mr. Nice Guy, is also ground up construction. They're going to be demolishing an existing building and going and building a brand new site as well. So two of your applicants are tenant improvements only, and one of your applicants and two of your applicants are new construction projects.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
After all the clarifications and questions, I do not have any other comments or questions on my end. Commissioner.
Yeah, the second proposed revision about automatic extension to additional 5-year and removal of the city's ability to review the operator's compliance. I
withdraw that. As I said, half of these could have been easily handled. However, I would like to thank the city attorney for notifying me that the result of that meeting, because it's news to me. And if in any way it seemed that I was pointing fingers, I didn't mean to. We must have had a misunderstanding of sorts. And I to be honest, close to half of these revisions can easily be handled with maybe a 20-minute meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's just all in transparency and fairness. If the majority of the commission is gonna approve these items or DAs, it's just kind of keep them consistent.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
I'm good on my end.
Yeah, if I may, I like to preach about consistency when it comes to the other applicants, right? We have not seen this perplexed of legal jargon. So I would like to recommend if this may be tabled so that both city staff and applicant can review terms, and then would definitely like to invite again the applicant on the next planning commission once this gets straightened out.
Commissioner, just a point of clarification. At this point, staff will not be presenting any new terms. This item has been publicly noticed as a public hearing. And so for transparency purposes and consistently with state law requirements, at this point, this is the DA that is before you. However, as we mentioned, if there is a desire to change some of the terms that are before you today, you are welcome to make that recommendation to the city council, who will ultimately decide how they want to move forward on the DA.
Thank you. I guess if I may follow up with a question, I don't know if this will be for the applicant. What I gather so far is just refraining from accountability. So may you shed light on that with the list of all these revisions and deletions? This is what I'm gathering, that when it comes to the title, the ownership, and so on and so forth that applicant just wants to not be accountable for if other things come up. So I don't know if you may shed light on that.
Sure, I'm here in front of you to answer all these questions. I've been accountable. I haven't had any other issues before. Paid over $1 million to the city of Montebello. Never had any accountability issues there. The fire department uses our cultivation facility as the model testing grounds of how a cultivation facility should look like. We've never had an issue with taxing authorities. I can provide my number, my email. You can call me and receive a response within a couple of hours. That I can promise. The whole issue with the property owner, as I explained to the city manager, city attorney, and the senior city planner, is that of being flexible and having liquidity to be able to get a loan on the property if there is the need to. And I understand there's not going to be a lien on it. However, there's going to be a recorded DA that clearly states that there is a lien that is superior. And I have spoken to lenders and they told me that it would not be possible to get a loan on those terms. That's what I was told. And it's more about viability. It's not about not being accountable. And we have always and will continuously follow, abide, and over, we overdo when it comes to state requirements. We do more than is necessary. And I'm sorry if it came out that we're not accountable. However, I'm telling you right here that half of these terms could have been cleared up, but I was under the impression that, as the city manager told me in the meeting, was that we're gonna sit down and have a meeting after you've gone and we will get back to you with the result. That's what I was left with. Maybe I misunderstood it. It's very possible. However, that's what was told to me. And I did bring up a few things that I said, yeah, we can toss that out. Maybe a couple of those things weren't brought up during the meeting for me to toss out. As in, okay, I'm fine. That's not an issue. In reality, I'm telling you right now, based on what I'm seeing here, the only two main issues, you know what? I'll withdraw the gross receipts one. It's only the property owner. That's my only issue.
And my next question is, I have asked this to other applicants in the past. When it comes to this product, many applicants come to the planning commission and want to open up, but in the end, they lack capital. On your end, do you have any issues or concerns with capital when it comes to full installation and implementation?
As I said, I do not have issues with it. However, with my building and the timeline of building a new construction and going through the entire process, I cannot predict what's going to happen in the future, just like what happened with COVID. We just every businessman wants to be liquid. And it's you can ask anyone. That's just something that you want to feel comfortable that at the worst case scenario, under your pillow, you have $100 that you can use. That's all it is. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next question is, earlier you mentioned how that's gonna look, for example, the installment of $100,000, if it was, effective December, if it's gonna also take into effect January. I don't know if city staff can respond to that.
It's my understanding, and Paloma, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not a prorated item. You pay once a year. It's an annual $100,000 public benefit. So if you get approved in July, the next payment, once the DA is executed, is the following year, the following July.
If I could add one minor correction, if the DA is executed, or if the effective date of the DA is, let's say, July 5, and to be clear, the DA defines the effective date as the satisfaction of signing the DA, providing proof of insurance to the city, as well as providing the initial $100,000 payment. That is when the DA becomes effective. The city is asking for the money up front for the initial $100,000 because there will be some time before any quarterly community benefits are received. in particular with ground up construction, because it will presumably take more time before you start to see operations commence and the city starts to realize that revenue. However, once the $100,000 is the contribution is made, whether that is made in January, the first one, whether it's made in January, March, August, or December, that is the initial contribution, and every annual contribution that comes after that will be annually in January.
Thank you. Do you have a response to that, applicant?
So my understanding is if December 25th it's paid, then January 1st, another 100,000 is paid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, then I guess we have a small little second issue, as I'm sure you can imagine that that's not fair. If you're paying 100,000 upon execution, which is we're totally okay with, to pay another 100,000 depending on when in the calendar year you made the payment, that does not seem fair. That is all. And I just want to say for the record, yes, we are the property owner and we have already spent 1.8 million on the property. Just wanted to state that for the record.
This question is directed to the applicant, just to gain some sort of perspective now and understanding as to how these operations work. Even though it has not been implemented into the DA, I would still like to know, like, what would cause a delay in operations, considering that, it was proposed that the extension was from 12 months to 24 after project construction. But this is just to gain more understanding as to why,
If it's after project has constructed, if the project's constructed in 30 days, the operational commence, less than 30 days, without a doubt.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no objection by the Planning Commission, we will now open public comments for this item. Secretary, will you please announce the instructions for public participation?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 2. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. And Chairperson, we did receive 1 comment card, and I'll go ahead and walk that over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Planning Secretary. At this time, we will call forward Eve Zimmerman, public agenda item number 2. Thank you very much. We'll hold on to that item for that comment for item number 3. But we would like to hear from Dr. Angela Chan. This is regarding item number 2.
First of all, thank you very much for giving opportunity for the Plan Commissioner to give me an opportunity to present. I'm Dr. Angela Chen, board certified internal medicine, practicing in 7615 Eastern Avenue for past 12 years, serving the community and in a low income and then the diverse and also culturally sensitive Abuela, Abuelo up until the Niño, Niña. For the past 12 years. I'm the 3rd generation in that building, 7615, next to the proposed building right now. So I have a few comments on that, since I will strongly would like to provide the objection of the site in a sense that I'm glad that we're able to get a chance to present, which we were out of town until 2 days ago and noticed that today is a public hearing. And it is my first time to come in, so please excuse me if I did a little bit of naive comments or anything. Please educate me since this is totally layman for me as a medical doctor. Regarding this facilities, and then first of all is a couple of issues. Community impact. The presence of a dispensary may cause a possession of unsafe and undesirable area, deferring the family members from visiting the medical office, which is really next to the vicinity of the proposed facility, and potential increase in traffic and loitering, which could disrupt the peaceful environment required for a medical facility. That goes with the health and the safety concerns, especially proximity to all these children and the elderly, which could increase the exposure to the cannabis related activities, and also the potential for the secondhand smoke or affecting the patients, especially with those kids or abuela, abuelo, with those elderly with the respiratory conditions. And the second thing is I have to be able to morally and ethically advocate for those public and concerning about this, so that concern about the message it sends to the children and families regarding drug use and its normalization. Ethical responsibility to provide a safe and nurturing environment for children and families who are seeking medical care, especially with chronic medical condition. And especially another one with the zoning and land use. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong. According to the Department of Cannabis Control, Bell Garden is still a prohibited city to use any of the cannabis, any related. So I know it's already up to the time. My suggestion is to alternate place for finding the facility. So I thank you for giving the opportunity to present. If I needed to know anything and a subsequent comments or result of this meeting, if I would have that information back again, it will be really appreciated. Thank you very much, all your attention. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Angela Chen. Planning Secretary, do we have any comments via online chat?
Chairperson, let me go ahead and check. If there's anyone in the chat line wishing to speak on this item, you may go ahead and hit the the icon to unmute yourself this time. And it looks like I don't see anyone in the chat line wishing to speak on this item, Chairperson.
Okay, if there's no objection by the Planning Commission, I will close public participation. And with that said, any other questions or comments by the Planning Commission? If not, would like to entertain a motion.
If I may, I would like to comment. Thank you, applicant, first and foremost, in presenting this. I feel that there was just a few of misunderstanding or miscommunication on multiple fronts on various parties. And I would like to continue recommending my fellow colleagues to table this for another meeting in the hopes that, you know, both parties can straighten these items out. And again, because with prior applicants, we did not see this before. So it just brings up more questions. And for me to, you know, present a vote, I would like to have this straightened out. So if I may, I would like to recommend this to be tabled for another Planning Commission meeting.
Yes, you may.
May I request that the planning commission approve the CUP as there seems to be no issues with the CUP, and to approve the DA as is, as my understanding is that it is just a recommendation and the city council does have the right to approve or deny or to make changes to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a request. Actually, if we could see that map where the doctor's office is at.
Can I speak about that too?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see
Yeah.
where it's located. Sorry.
Of course. I just want to say I'm thankful for the comments. And I do believe that whatever is being constructed there is going to be better than kind of, I'm sure you guys know what it looks like. Just empty vacant land. That is definitely, you know, we keep it up every 3 months. We try to clean it up and whatnot, but it's still, if you ask me, a safety hazard versus new constructed building. Yeah, over there, that one. And the store is on the opposite, the corner.
So that would be the casino parking, correct?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Mona Mosaib speaking. This is a casino parking here. You have the California Water offices here, the medical here, and then all the across the street, retail.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Chairperson, if I may, it looks like there's someone in the chat line that just sent a message wanting to speak on this item. I believe it would be at the discretion of the commission to reopen the public hearing to allow this applicant to, or not the applicant, but to allow someone to speak on this item.
Planning Secretary, yes, we'll open public hearing to hear that that comment.
Okay, give me just 1 second. Hello, Mr. Donald Han. Can you hear me? You can go ahead and press *6 to unmute yourself. Mr. Han, can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes,
can you
we
hear
can
me?
hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, hey, city members, my name is Donald Han. I'm the adjacent properties owner. So my property is 7625 Eastern Avenue. We have several tenants in my shopping center. We have a 7-Eleven, we have the pizza shop, we have the smoke shop, we have a retail pharmacy. I've been seeing this a lot being vacant for over 3 years, 4 years. And I think we attend another public hearing 2022, 2 years ago, talking about to build a retail building. Ever since, we haven't seen anything, any movement in that lot. And suddenly today, we just hear 2 cannabis businesses in 1 day want to get a public hearing. One of the reasons I purchased this shopping center in Bell Garden is a cannabis-free city. We didn't have any cannabis business in our city. The closest dispensary is in city of Bell, and we see one in Downey, but none in Bell Gardens. That's one of the reasons we feel very safe in our city. But ever since last year, we had 3 violence situations in our shopping center. The very last one was in March at midnight, 2 homeless getting a fight. I know the applicants have like 24-hour security guide in his own center. But guess what? When people buy their product, they will find a closest parking lot to use the product. We are the closest parking lot. We already have enough of situations. So we don't want to see any other, security concerns happen. That's one of the reasons I want to object. And another reason, by listening all this today's applicant's presentation, I don't think he's experienced as applicant number one, because the first guy talking about 35 stores, where are they, and how they look like, very detailed. But this guy, he's saying, oh, he managed 100 stores, and the example he gave out is about cultivation. I really want to know more about his experience on retail, on marijuana dispensaries, like how he keep the records. Talking about records, he doesn't want to show records to the city. It seems like he has meetings going behind today's hearing, but as today his presentation, it seems like he doesn't want to show his numbers. He doesn't want to go public. That's the two reasons: safety, and I don't think this guy is ready. That's my concerns. Thank you for your time, and please consider my situation here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Han.
Thank you, Mr. Han. We will close public hearing at this moment at 7:24. We're back to commissioner comments and questions. If not, a motion is entertained.
Chairperson, do we currently have a motion to table this item? Is that correct? Looks like we got a first, but not a second.
No, we do not have an active motion at the moment.
I don't know if I may hear from other colleagues, other commissioners on this topic, if they want to discuss.
From what I gather is, you'd like for us to approve it as is because you want to bring the subject up to the city council and get them to agree with you instead of us. Because we've had the opportunity to see what all the things that you didn't see eye to eye. I understand that you framed it around that you're following the experts that say, hey, the record keeping or the percentage on the gross receipts. You following the people that claim to be experts and not the state, right?
No,
Because
I am claiming the state,
okay,
not the experts as in the CDTFA, the California Department of Tax Fee and Administration, that administers and collects excise tax, yes.
okay. And because of all these revisions and all these concerns that, kind of, we all kind of little, for the back of a better term, we all got a little triggered and we're like, whoa, what's going on? I don't believe that after seeing all this and the discussions that have been going back and forth I don't believe this is in good faith. And I don't think that I can move forward with recommending something at this time. That's my opinion.
I do stand in the same position as Commissioner Ramirez had mentioned, solely also considering that there was going to be a follow-up conversation about the discussed revisions, but both ends did not meet. At least that's from what I understood in the comments made today. So my opinion stands as is. Yeah.
So it seems like, you know, the consensus here for the commissions that we all feel a little uncertain, right? But just correct me if I'm wrong, staff. This pretty much mirrors the same DAs as the other applicants. So whether or not we feel a certain way, it's pretty much the same, and the city is unwilling to go back to negotiate, correct?
Paloma McAvoy with the City Attorney's Office. Yes, your understanding is correct. The DA before you in the agenda materials today are very close to the other three DAs that you've looked at this point. And it's just want to make a small point of clarification in terms of the negotiation process. The reason why staff at this point will not be continuing to negotiate this is because this item has now been publicly noticed and is before you today. And that's the rationale why it's not necessarily because we said we're done. As my colleague Gus Romo also mentioned, you know, was discussed that we could potentially continue to discuss these items. However, it would not appear on the June Planning Commission agenda. But at the time, the applicant felt comfortable enough to move forward. I do also want to address one thing. There were a few items where the applicant said that in our city staff meeting, where he said he was not going to continue pushing for those revisions. In those instances where we were in agreement that he wasn't going to push for it and the city was fine with that, those bullet points are not before you in the slides that you saw earlier today.
So can you walk us through, if we decide to table this, what would that process look like? If you may.
Absolutely. Sure. So if you were to table this item, you would have some opportunity to take a closer look at these revisions and whether or not this is something that you would recommend to the city council rather than doing it, you know, on the public dais today. I would also recommend at this point that you, if you do table it, that you table it to a date certain rather than keeping it open-ended. That provides everybody some certainty in terms of the timeframes in which we're working with, both for city staff as well as the applicant. And then it also gets rid of the need to have to publicly notice the hearing again.
Yeah, I'll just explain that you know, there's these public noticing requirements that public hearing notices have to be mailed out and all that sort of thing. But when you continue an item, as Ms. McAvoy said, to a date certain, then that means that everyone who tuned in because they got the notice and they showed up at home or in person on this date, they will hear the next date. So the city will not need to mail out new notices. So that's what we mean by continuing it to a date certain. So that would be whatever Gus recommends, the next meeting or the meeting after that, whatever it is, we should announce that date. And then I'll just remind you all that the applicant is ready to move forward even with a recommendation that he doesn't like. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I may, Commissioner Leon, one more option I'd like to offer up is it seems that the applicant is now maybe agreeable to many of the terms. If you tabled it, perhaps he could come with a comprehensive list of what terms he's agreeable to, because I think that's kind of changed a little bit throughout the evening, and so that you have a clear picture of what terms are still on the table as well.
So if I may recommend that we go back to that slide that has the list of revisions and deletions and go over them one by one, please.
We'll bring it up just now, the slide with the DA negotiation list. And I believe there were two, so we'll probably have to toggle.
The first page is removal of the property owner, the applicant as signatory to the development agreement. Second is.
Sorry, and if we could have the applicant go one by one.
Certainly, certainly.
Thank you.
Permission is granted for the applicant to speak in regards to the proposed revisions.
Okay, I do not agree with the removal of the property owner. The next one, the automatic extension, no issue with it. Proposes to revise the initial 100,000 annual community benefits. Little unclear, but I'll withdraw that. Withdraw the quarterly community benefits 10% to 6%. Withdrawing the definition of the gross receipts. Withdrawing the ability to terminate the DA. Withdrawing the revision and responsibility to provide tax filings. Withdrawing the deletion to requirement to keep records. Withdrawing deletion the language that would make a lien. Oh no, that one I'm not withdrawing as it's linked with the property owner. And the revision to the annual review withdrawn. Revision to the operator's duty for pay for cost recovery withdrawn. Withdrawing the deletion of the requirement for the assignment of rights. Withdrawing the deletion of language that informs any subsequent property owner of constructive notice. I'm not withdrawing that as it's linked up with the property owner. That's all just one. Deletion of the provision that holds the operating property owner jointly and severally liable. That's also linked with the property owner. And deletion of language that would make the DA binding on any successors in interest. If that's regarding the applicant, I'm fine with that. Pretty much, I'm okay with everything except with the property owner signing it, and that's my only issue at the moment. So.
And applicant, how would you like that to be seen as, where you will say, yes, I agree to that?
I would request that the property owner does not sign and it's not recorded on the property owner's property.
Paloma McAvoy, City Attorney's Office. As it relates to the second request, that would make the DA not compliant with state law. State law does require the DA to be recorded on title with the property.
Sorry, of course, as regarding CEQA and all of that, yes, the property can be, the DA can be recorded with the applicant, not with the property owner signing it. Just the same DA, just without the property owner. That is it.
So if I may clarify with the applicant, the remaining points of contention involve the removal of the property owner in any capacity throughout the development agreement.
Yes.
The deletion of section 6.1, the mortgagee protection.
Yes.
And section 9.5, deletion of constructed notice and acceptance as it relates to the subsequent property owner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the record clearly reflected the terms that are still points of contention for this planning commission. Thank you.
I do have a question for the applicant. Have you had any conversations with your neighbors, like with the doctor's office?
Yes,
or-
I actually provide them free parking. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I have a quick question. I'm not sure if we're privy to this information, but for the other applicant that we approved the CUP and the DA with the construction, was there same concern about, loan issue, whatnot, or are they not in the same situation as this applicant?
I would like to state that I can definitely say that I have spent the most money as any applicant has. Close to 2 million, it was 1.8, and it's continuously rolling on. And it's just about being liquid. That's all. If I was to come in with an existing building where I would have to spend for TI improvements, I would have not anything to worry about. It's just a matter of I have spent quite a lot, and I will be spending a lot more, as this is not only one unit. This is multiple units in a large building. It's not something that has to do with, you know, 4,000 square feet building, more so 14,000 square feet. So it changes the ball game significantly.
And Commissioner Leon, as I stated, two of the projects you've seen so far, ground up construction, 2 involve tenant improvements.
May I
But
ask
this is the only one that has expressed this concern.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, I was told that other applicants had that concern. I'm sure they don't have a concern now. However, I don't think that they're constructing a 14,000 square feet building as well. A 2-story.
You've mentioned you've invested already quite a large sum into this project. Can you specify exactly into what have you been investing into?
Oh, well, I purchased the property. The architectural plans, the engineering plans, the surveys, those don't come cheap. So the LID civil engineer permits, preparing all of that, we're close to 1.8 million. Yeah.
8 million.
Oh, we had asbestos in the building as well, when we demolished the building, because it used to be a former Ace Hardware, which was a health hazard, a huge health hazard, dilapidated condition with pigeons living inside, the roof falling apart. So we demolished it. It had asbestos, do testing for that, remove it separately, and just the upkeep with the property, which isn't much, but it's more about the planning.
And just to follow, when did you purchase the property, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
Don't quote me on it, but I believe end of or in 2022. I don't remember what month.
Got it. Thank you. Because that's prime location right there next to the casino as well.
Thank you very much. No more questions or comments on my end. If there are no more questions or comments by the rest of the commission, I would like to entertain a motion as well.
I have a question for staff. This development agreement, this DA, how does it differentiate from other DAs for just a straight business building versus a cannabis? Like, is it a drastic difference? And can you please go into that a little bit?
Absolutely. Paloma McAvoy, City Attorney's Office. This is actually the first time the city has and will be entering into development agreements for any project within the city. So this is a first time for the city. I can tell you from experience and working in jurisdictions throughout Southern California, many of the terms are standard terms they're standard. I think where you're going to see the biggest difference is things that pertain specifically to cannabis, the regulation of cannabis businesses. Community benefits are always exchanged for the vested property rights. In this DA, the applicant would have potentially vested property rights for potentially a 10-year term in exchange for those community benefits. So typically that's how development agreements work. They get this vested interest, and in return, the city gets community benefits. A lot of the other terms, I don't think there's anything that different. Say, for example, if somebody was to entitle a property and they wanted to vest those rights for a 20-year term or 40-year term, you'll see a lot of the same terminology, but community benefits might look different. I think that's probably where you'll see some of the biggest differences.
Thank you.
Questions or comments by other commissioners?
Seems like the only thing holding it as up is pretty much the landlord, right? Issues with the property owner, right?
Yes, however, I do want to state that I am requesting for the CUP to be approved and to recommend the approval of the DA as is currently.
So everything we've discussed off the table and DAS is, as mentioned, on the agenda, right?
I'd like to motion to not recommend approval of the DA.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Wait, if I may clarify, sir, you say recommend approval of the DA, but remember there's 3 items in the
Right.
so you could say recommend approval per staff's recommendation of all items.
Right, per staff recommend approval to not recommend any of the items on item number 2. To not recommend let me see here. 1, 2, and 3 on item number 2. How would you like me to phrase that? So I don't want to recommend item number 2, right? And then you want me to specify as to what I'm not recommending, correct?
Well, there's something you're not recommending.
Right, I don't want to move forward with this item.
So just to clarify, are you recommending disapproval?
Correct.
Right, may I have a second in regards to that motion?
Yes, I second.
All right, may we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Boado,
Abstain.
Commissioner Leon,
Abstain.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mendez,
Yes to disapproval.
and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes to the motion.
So what do we have? I'm confused.
So the motion is 3 approving the denial and 2 are abstaining.
And that's the denial of all 3 items?
Correct.
Okay. So, and how many?
If I may, Paloma McAvoy, City Attorney's Office,
Thank you.
we will need some findings to recommend disapproval of the CUP. Or I apologize, not recommend approval, disapproval, but to actually disapprove the CUP. That is something that is within your jurisdiction, the actual approval or disapproval of the CUP. One way that it could be done in order to just make sure we're in compliance with everything is to come back with a resolution at a subsequent planning commission meeting that provides you with those findings. Right now, what you do not have a resolution recommending denial, only approval. So you'll need to have a resolution that says that those findings cannot be made and adopt that resolution at a later date.
Right,
So-
I agree with Ms. McAvoy. So the commission should always keep in mind that any decision, an approval or a denial has to be supported by findings. So the resolution that was before you for approval, it had made the findings. So for approval. So a conditional use permit, the findings have to do with compatibility with surrounding uses and consistency with the general plan. Stephen, you can read them off, but these are the things that, it might be helpful to at least say some of the things you're thinking about that would support a denial. And then, as Ms. McAvoy said, the staff can bring back a resolution that spells those out. And then it can be for your approving the resolution to deny. But I think it'd be helpful to talk about the findings for a conditional use permit. Just so that for the commission's education and so that you know what kinds of things you're looking for when you're deciding to deny something.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. We, Stephen Jones, City Planner, did make analysis of the general plan, for example. So number one, we said that the conditional use permit proposal was consistent with land use policies 3, 4, and 5. And while I also look up the zoning code burden of proof, for lack of a better term, for approval, it does include things like adequate and a lot being adequate in size and shape to accommodate the proposed use. While I looked that up, Ms. Mosiah, if you could go over land use policies 3, 4, and 5 that you indicated were met with the proposal, and then that may give a little bit of more context for what the commission wants to consider.
And I'll tell you what, I'll do this now that I have it in front of me. Really the two key ones that give the most room for a commission to decide that they don't think that it's or that they want to support a denial. The two that are the key findings are the finding for approval has to be that it does not jeopardize, adversely affect, endanger, or otherwise constitute a nuisance to the public health, safety, or general welfare. So the commission to support a denial would need to say that it does jeopardize, or something about it does jeopardize, somehow it adversely affects, endangers, or constitutes a nuisance to public health, safety, or general welfare. So that's a very general thing, and that's the kind of thing that you know, if you have concerns and you want to say them on the record, then staff can work on putting that into a written resolution. Another one is, as Stephen mentioned, adequate in size and shape and topography. To accommodate yards, walls, fences, parking, loading, landscaping, and other development features that the code requires. In order to integrate said use with the existing uses in the neighborhood. So that's where you get to compatibility. That's really what a conditional use permit is about, is it compatible with surrounding uses? So if there was something that you saw about the neighborhood or about the neighboring uses that concern you, that would be something that you could articulate, and then staff could, as Ms. McAvoy said, staff could bring back a resolution that spells some of those out for you. And I'll just say one more thing, Stephen. I know you got something to say, but I'll just say one more thing, that findings for approval, they all have to be made in the affirmative. An approval of a CUP requires that every finding be found to be true. For a denial, really all you need is one, because if you can't make one of those findings, then the project fails to satisfy all findings. So that's the key, is to you don't have to knock every one of them out of the running, but one or two would be enough.
So in this instance, the location is right next to a medical facility. We know for certain that there's no contamination to the air, that the potential people that go seek health advice from the doctors, which might have respiratory issues, we know for certain that they won't be jeopardized by that location being there. That would be the question I'd asked for them to clarify.
Right, and to add on to Mr. Ramirez's statement, I did hear that there was asbestos in the property, so this is concerning for those who would be approaching the premises.
Just to let you know, the asbestos has been removed. That was part of the demolition.
Thank you for clarifying.
So if there's any other concerns that the commission wants to ask staff to put together or add to, or to look into and then add to a resolution, then they can do that, and then whatever date Gus would like to continue the item to, we can announce the date certain.
Stephen, the next regular planning commission meeting is July 17th, is that correct?
That's correct, Deputy City Manager.
So if the commission agrees, we would bring back a resolution for denial at the July 17th meeting.
And then to clarify, this is Stephen Jones, City Planner. Again, we just a moment ago briefly had up the slide with the land use policies. One of the findings in the zoning code does include consistency with those findings. And so while we've made arguments that support that the project does meet, it's not a out of the realm of possibility that the commission would disagree, but those policies were found to be in substantial compliance with the general plan. You would need to, again, make findings for one of those. It says the things Lloyd mentioned, or that this is in substantial conflict with the general plan. So those items were up just briefly. If you need to take a look at them again, we'll put them up again.
I would like to make a motion to table the item to the July 17th regular planning commission meeting.
I second.
Planning Secretary, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chairperson Mendez
Yes.
and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
This is Paloma McAvoy, City Attorney's Office. Just for clarification, I just want to ensure that the motion was to table the item to the July 17th meeting and to further instruct staff to come back with resolutions to deny the CUP on the basis of impacts to nearby businesses, odor mitigation, and the medical office building, as well as come back with a resolution that would recommend denial of the DA.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mhm. We will now begin with item number 3 on the agenda. At this time, I'll open public hearing at 7:56 p.m. May we have
If I may also recuse myself for item 3, as it is within my residence, within the 500 feet.
All right, we will commence with staff report upon Vice Chair Mendez stepping out of the meeting. May we please have the staff report, Mr. Flores?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff, and public. For the record, my name is Adrian Flores, Associate Planner with Bell Gardens Planning Division. And this presentation is to discuss Conditional Use Permit 2024-019 as it relates to the development of a new microwave station to be used as a wireless communication facility on an existing Southern California Edison transmission tower located at 6326 Cage Avenue. The applicant Alex Saturov, representing Morrison Hirschfield and Dish Wireless LLC, is requesting two items. One, a category exemption determination from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to state CEQA guidelines. And two, adopt resolution PC 2024-16 approving conditional use permit number 2024-019 to authorize the development of a new microwave station to be used as a wireless communication facility on an existing Southern California Edison transmission tower located at 6326 Gage Avenue. The subject site is located within the OS Open Space and Parks Zone with the land use designation of Open Space Parks OS. To the immediate north of the subject site is the City of Commerce. To the south is also OS zone with commercial use. And immediate to the east and west of the subject site is a combination of mixed use R3, high density residential, and R4, very high density residential zoning designations with retail and residential uses existing. As seen in the image from Gage, the current site conditions reflect the access way to an existing and the proposed wireless communication facility. The existing tower is the tower located on the right on the top picture and on the left at the bottom picture. Now, in 2005, CUP number 2005-103 authorized the development of a wireless communication facility on the adjacent Northwest SoCal Edison transmission tower, operated by T-Mobile, as seen in this image here on the left and at the image at the bottom on the right. The applicant proposes to develop a new facility on the northeast existing Southern California Edison transmission tower. With the depicted site plan, note that the subject site is located on the south side of Gage Avenue. The subject site is approximately 229,250 square feet in size. The existing Southern California Edison transmission tower is located along the northeast portion of the subject site as shown in yellow. Access to the facility is provided by Gage Avenue, offering ingress and egress. The project would include the overall installation of 3 sector frames as shown in these red clouds here. A total of 3 panel antennas and 6 remote radio units. So that would be 1 panel antenna each and 2 remote radio units each as well. In addition, within a 225 square feet lease area located at the base of the northeast tower, the applicant proposes groundwork for the development of a 215 square feet equipment enclosure constructed on a concrete pad within a 8-foot high masonry walls with a chain link topper. The proposed equipment enclosure would house an ice bridge, equipment cabinets, GPS unit, and power meters. The existing transmission tower is approximately 118 feet tall, and the antennas are proposed to be installed at a 46-foot high point of the tower, as shown here in red. As previously indicated, the proposed equipment enclosure is constructed of a concrete pad within a 8-foot high masonry wall with the chain link topper right at the base of the transmission tower, as shown here in green. Here we can see the before and after depiction showing how the transmission tower looks now and how it would look after the development of the wireless communication facility. As seen on the photo on the left, this is the before. You could see the existing neighboring communication facility and the bare tower with no communication facility. As shown on the right, you will see that they will be installing the wireless communication facility very similar to the neighboring facility. Now, the neighboring, like I mentioned, is operated by T-Mobile. The new wireless communication facility will be operated by Dish. Applicant's request is consistent with the City of Bell Gardens General Plan Land Use Policy 5. The development of a wireless communication facility would stimulate property values and community stability for existing businesses and residents in the immediate area of the subject site by improving Dish wireless services for broadband access and availability, increased efficiency of information transmission, and improved real-time data and situational awareness for emergency responders, and would therefore be consistent with Policy 5 of the Bell Gardens General Plan Land Use Policy. The project meets requirements in section 9.50.050 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code, basis for approval of denial of conditional use permit. And the Federal Communication Commission allows local governments to discretionarily review and approve new wireless communication facilities. Federal law requires state and local governments to act on applications within a reasonable time. The FCC defines a reasonable time to act on a small cell wireless application as 60 days for facilities placed on existing structures. For the record, consistent with this FCC laws, new language was added to condition number 7 of Resolution PC 2024-16 to add, the director or designee shall also be authorized to administratively approve eligible modifications to the site permit as required by state or federal law. This language would ensure that the review and approval of any future modifications to the proposed wireless communication facility complies with state and federal laws. Each commissioner member was provided with an updated resolution containing this new language. Applicant's request is consistent with the general plan and the Bell Gardens Municipal Code as previously indicated. Now, it is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission find that the proposal is categorically exempt from, it finds that the categorical exemption determination from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to state CEQA guidelines. And lastly, adopt resolution 2024-16 approving conditional use permit number 2024-019 to authorize the development of a new microwave station to be used as a wireless communication facility on an existing Southern California Edison transmission tower located at 6326 Gage Avenue. This concludes my staff report. Staff, city attorney, and applicant are open to questions. Thank you.
No questions on my end at the moment. Staff, by any chance, do we have the applicant with us, whether it be virtually or in person?
We do have the applicant available. Alex is available via Zoom. If you have any questions, he will be able to assist you.
Hi, good evening. Apologize I couldn't be there today, but I am here and happy to answer any questions, tell you more about the project if you'd like to hear.
Hey, Alex, quick question. Approximately how many watts does a microwave station transmit? In case you know the response.
Don't quote me on this, but I believe the radios they're 40-watt radios is what's being used here. And I'll just do a quick introduction on myself. I'm Alex Sadaroff. I work for Morrison Hershfield. We're the consultants on the project for Dish Wireless. And thank you, Adrian, for the introduction on the project. We're happy to be here. This project's been in the works for a few months now, so I appreciate your support. I can just kind of briefly give you a little bit more information about the project. I know it's been a long evening here for everyone. We've been listening in for the last few hours, but I'll try to keep it short. So the purpose of the project is to provide new radio frequency coverage in an area that's not currently serviced by existing radio frequency coverage. And what I mean by that is Dish Wireless is a new carrier, just to give you a little bit more about Dish Wireless. So Dish Wireless has traditionally for 40 years been in the satellite TV business. So people have them as their main TV provider. In 2020, as a result of the T-Mobile and Sprint merger, the FCC wanted to encourage competition in the wireless space, and Dish wanted to get into that business. And so out of that Sprint T-Mobile merger, the FCC mandated certain conditions and requirements, and in order to encourage competition, Dish entered the space, and the FCC, the federal government, imposed certain conditions on Dish to deploy their frequencies and to encourage competition. The first milestone was for Dish Wireless to cover 70% of the United States by June 2023. That initial milestone has been met. The second milestone is right around the corner, and that's to cover 75% of the United States by June 2025. That's what this project is here for today. We currently do not have any coverage in the city of Bell Gardens, and so this is part of that initial greenfield rollout where we're gonna go build the sites, commission the sites. Once they're commissioned, we'll do the marketing and get customers. And so just really briefly, I'll just touch on the design and the subject site as the planning just touched on earlier. Microwave facilities are permitted in this specific zone, subject to CUP. I will say that, as staff mentioned, there's already an existing CUP, so we're not here proposing to increase the height or change the use that's already there. There's already T-Mobile, I believe, is the other carrier there. It's already an existing transmission facility for SCE. So it fits perfectly with what's already there. And the photo simulations do a really good job of demonstrating that. So there's not going to be any change of use or anything like that. So I just wanted to make that clear. And so I want to keep my presentation short, but just want to thank everyone for their time and planning, for their support. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. So, correct me if I'm wrong, a key benefit of implementing such a project would be increased telecommunication services?
Yes, this specifically would be for 5G voice and data. So this site will be able to cover the residents in and around here for 5G technology.
Nice. I know that 5G has been growing quite rapidly in the space where, telecommunications, in that business space, right? So does Dish contract cell phone providers, or how does this work? Because, Dish, I've heard of it, growing up, but, seeing it enter the telecommunication space, it's quite new to me, so.
Sure. And right now, there are certain markets where Dish is live. Maybe some of you have heard of the brand Boost Mobile. That's Dish's brand, essentially. They're operating it under different kind of marketing, but in certain markets, they are live and they have a network. And so that's what we're doing here is we're building out the network. It's called the Greenfield Network. And once we entitle the sites, we get the agreements with the property owners, we obtain all the proper permits, we'll go build it, commission it, and then the marketing will follow.
Thank you very much, Alex. That concludes my questions. Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
Well, I have a question, but I doubt this happens. So you said there's T-Mobile existing already there, so there won't be any barriers as far as people with their signals, cell phones at all?
By barriers, what do you mean?
Well, as far as like, for example, if someone has T-Mobiles in the area and then now you're putting the new transmitters for, what is it called? Is that, you said Boost, or is it Dish Wireless now?
Dish Wireless. Yeah, so it's really, there's no conflict, no interference. Basically, your phone is pre-programmed to your carrier, and we operate on totally different frequencies. Think of it like your radio station in your car, right? There's different radio stations, and they have different frequencies. It's the same thing with a wireless carrier. Your phone has those frequencies. You can only operate on that network unless it's unlocked or something else like that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question. It's not really that major, but I mean, it's a Edison Tower. Like, there would be your designs. There would be no way of them like making it more pleasant to the eye, would it? Or is it just a bunch of electronics on the side and that's it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you know we always try to look for ways to improve it. But being that this is an existing transmission tower, there's really not any options to kind of screen it, right? The main purpose is for a transmission tower, SCEs operating that provide electricity to all the customers there. So, unfortunately, without putting in a new structure, which we're trying to avoid here, right, having more towers, we're going on an existing tower and trying to conceal it to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
Right. If there are no more questions or comments by the planning commission, we will now open public participation. Planning secretary, will you please announce the instructions?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on the public hearing item number 3. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the planning commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individual joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. And Chairperson, it looks like you already received 1 comment for item number 3. I did not receive any more comment cards.
Thank you very much. We'll have Eve Zimmerman come up for item number 3.
Thank you. This is what I came for. I thought cannabis was being sold everywhere. I didn't even, because I live within 500 feet of it. I want to say something because I've heard that if words are said even years later, it makes it easier for an environmental group to get into it. And this is directly connected with this environmental group. And my question is, why does our area need to request an exemption from California environmental quality? I mean, why we should stay with the good quality, not ask for an exemption. Don't you think? I mean, maybe later they're going to find out this stuff's not so good, and maybe the environmental quality of California already does. That's why you're asking for an exemption.
Yes, please.
Hi, good evening, if I may.
Hi.
So first I'll just say as a general rule, public comment is not a question and answer
Oh, it
time.
isn't?
No, it's not a question and answer time, but, you know, not a lot of people here tonight. So the chair asked me to respond, so I'm certainly happy to respond. So, it's you're right that the California Environmental Quality Act is the state law. It's the state environmental law. And in that law, there's something called exemptions, okay? And it just means exceptions. So it's not that something special is being asked for. It's not that city staff are requesting some type of a special treatment here. It's that built into the law, there are things that are exempt. So for example, you can build 1, 2, even 3 single-family homes. You're exempt from the California environmental law, okay? It's just an example of an exemption. In this case, we're talking about an existing tower, electrical transmission tower, sorry, It's an existing tower, so really nothing new is being built. It's just a little bit of equipment is being added to an existing tower. So staff determined that it falls within an exemption in the law, which is for things that won't have any effect on the environment.
Okay, well, I want to add this to it. I moved into that house, 50-something years ago. And I did not know or do due diligence in study. I was a young person. That there's more cancer cases next to those high wires. That's statistically been proven that it is an environmental problem. Now we have a new thing, microwaves on the things. And so I wanted to speak up so that if in the future they get real strong about environment again, they know that someone in Bell Gardens said, I don't know about the microwaves. And because they already know about the electrical wires, and they didn't know years ago, but they've proven it, and they even know how far that people could live without it affecting them. And so, you know, I'd like to be living further away and not be in that environment. I raised my kids in it. I wouldn't have moved there. Thank you, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eve Zimmerman. She may continue to stay tuned into the meeting. Can I make a question to Stan? Echoing, yeah. So echoing what Ms. Zimmerman has stated, this question is directed to the applicant and staff. Do we have any insights as to you know, a correlation between cancer rates and living next to these microwave conductors? Do we have any data on that or statistical evidence?
And
Yeah.
if I may jump in before you on that. So, you know, I've been to meetings on cell towers and things like that. And it's certainly, you know, common that people have concerns and want to talk about them, and you, the commission, are free to talk about everything, anything you like. But there is federal law on this, and it happens that there's federal policy that the policy is to allow these things, okay, because they kind of help our society, okay? So there is law that, again, just like we said with the CUP on the last project, we said that a denial has to be based on findings, right? Any both an approval or a denial, they have to be based on findings. And under federal law, in terms of health effects, the federal law says that cities can only require compliance with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, the federal law. The cities cannot base a denial on, you know, testimony about health effects. Okay, it's just the way that the federal law is controlling here is that cities can require compliance with federal law, but they can't base a denial on testimony about health effects, because that's what the federal law is trying to deal with, and they don't want individual cities, you know, standing in the way of, what should we call it, progress.
Yeah, and I'll just, if I could just add to that, as part of our conditions of approval in this resolution here today, we are required to be in full compliance. That's in writing, and explicitly we're going to agree to that. We've also submitted a self-certification of sorts prior to this meeting, saying that in addition to the COAs, that we have this other mechanism that you can keep us honest. So at the end of the day, it's an important issue, and we kind of police ourselves through the federal government. But the facility will be in full compliance. And just to be clear, the application says new microwave facility. That's just the verbiage in the code. There's no microwaves as part of this facility. These are antennas, just regular panel antennas.
You said just regular what instead of microwaves?
They're panel antennas.
I still can't hear that word.
Just panel antennas,
Oh,
directional antennas.
panel antennas. Thank you.
Planning Secretary, do we have any comments on the web?
I don't see it at this, let me see. If there's anyone in the chat line wishing to speak on this item, you may do so at this time by pressing *6 to unmute yourself. And Chairperson, it looks like we do not have anybody in the chat line wishing to speak on this item.
Thank you, Planning Secretary. If there are no additional objections by the Planning Commission, I will close public participation. And at this moment, commissioners, any other questions or comments directed to staff or the applicant? If not, we do have a motion to place.
I just wanted to thank the public for the comments, and also to Lloyd for the stance on the federal law on that. Very insightful. Thank you.
Chairperson, I just wanted to note for the record that we closed the public hearing at 8:23 p.m.
Yes, thank you. I would like to place a motion to approve CUP number 2024-09019. And the conditions included in resolution PC 2024-16.
Second that motion.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote?
Sure, Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mendez. Oh, I'm sorry, he's abstaining. And Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes.
And with that said, I can go ahead, motion passes 4-0, and I can go ahead and go get Mr. Mendez for the next item.
Thank you. Welcome back, Vice Chair Mendez. We will now begin with item number 4 on the agenda. At this time, we will open public hearing at 8:27 p.m. Mr. Flores, may we have the staff report?
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. For the record, again, my name is Eden Flores, Associate Planner for Bell Gardens Planning Division. This presentation is to introduce zoning code amendment number 2022-072, vehicle parking and storage for automobile uses, also known as ordinance number 943. Now, it is recommended that the Planning Commission do two things. First, find the proposed ordinance 943 categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. And two, adopt resolution 2024-12, recommending to the City Council approval of zoning code amendment number 2022-072 and adoption of ordinance number 943, amending the Bell Gardens Municipal Code to regulate off-street vehicle parking and storage for automobile repair uses. Now, a little background on this ordinance. Historically, residential neighborhoods in the city of Bell Gardens adjacent to automobile repair uses have experienced limited on-street parking availability within public right-of-ways. The limitation on on-street parking within the public right-of-way of residential areas is also a result of the city's dense neighborhoods, collection and storage of multiple personal vehicles, and underutilized or converted parking garages. These existing situations discourage local business patronage and spending, which cause residents to park vehicles at an unreasonable distance before arriving home. Thus, there is a need for the city to explore options to address the lack of parking spaces available within the public right-of-way of residential and other areas. On February 21st, 2024, the Planning Commission provided direction to staff on the preparation of an ordinance to establish new regulation and expand and/or supplement existing codified language to address impacted parking in the community public right-of-way. Now, staff conducted a survey of neighboring cities and found that Bell Gardens already has parking programs and regulations to address limited parking concerns that compares to what other neighboring cities are doing. Parking such as parking time limit in designated areas and residential permitted parking districts appear to be the most prominent. Similar to Ordinance 943, staff also found that the City of Bell adopted an ordinance to address the use of street parking for storage of vehicles as well. Proposed amendments goes in two sections. Definitions. Definitions are required to provide staff with the necessary tools to effectively implement and enforce zoning code. Therefore, the zoning code amendment proposes to create a definition for queue or queuing to ensure that term encompasses all forms of lines or sequences of people for vehicles awaiting their turn to be attended or to proceed. The purpose and intent for zoning code amendment 2022-072 outlines regulations for automobile repair uses, emphasizing two key aspects. First, it mandates the provision of maintenance of all-street parking and loading facilities by owners and encourages business expansion within the boundaries of private property in ways compatible to the fabric of the existing neighborhood. These provisions would ensure parking on public right-of-way is available to residents and visitors to the area. Second, it requires operators to visibly display an invoice or serviced automobiles indicating submission and estimated completion dates. The proposed regulations aim to ensure orderly operations and business practices, minimizing parking and storage congestion. This provision would hold businesses accountable for servicing their customers and would encourage automobile and vehicle management plans that relies on the use of private land to accommodate private enterprises. Ordinance 943 is consistent with general plan circulation element. Policy 5.1 that acknowledges the importance of the balanced supply of parking and establishing a balanced supply that meets the needs of drivers, but does not do so in excess to reduce vehicle trips and encourage active transportation. In addition, Ordinance 943 is consistent with Land Use Element Policy 3 pursuant to General Plan Land Use Element Policy 3, the use of development standards and the provision of adequate off-street parking and area for vehicle storage promotes compatible commercial development and enhances the potential economic vitality and revitalization, since available space in the public right-of-way would attract business opportunities and patrons. And the community has the opportunity to accommodate space for nearby residents who rely on personal vehicles for transportation to park. In addition, ordinance 943 is consistent with policy number 4 and 5 of the land use element. General plan land use element policies number 4 and 5 pertaining to the city's industrial economic base, commercial area revitalization, and community stability would be promoted, since unavailable shared public right-of-way invites visitors and residents to spend locally and patronize local businesses. Unavailable space discourages patronization and restricts those living in the area from accessing their residencies in an acceptable manner. Now, it is staff's recommendation that the planning commission conduct a public hearing and receive public testimony. Find that ordinance 943 is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. And lastly, adopt resolution 2024-12, recommending to the city council approval of zoning code amendment number 2022-072 and adoption of ordinance 943, amending the Bell Gardens Municipal Code to regulate off-street vehicle parking and storage for automobile repair uses. Staff and city attorney are available for any questions. This concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? There's no objection by the planning commission. We will now open public comments for this item. Secretary, will you please conduct the instructions for public participation?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 4. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the planning commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit all your comment cards now. And Chairperson, I did not receive any comment cards. And I can go ahead and see if there's anyone in the chat line wishing to speak on this item. Anyone in the chat line wishing to speak, if you want to go ahead and press *6 to unmute yourself at this time, you may do so. And it looks like there's no one in the chat line wishing to speak on this item as well.
Thank you, Planning Secretary. If there are no additional comments or questions, we'll close public hearing at 8:35 p.m. Now we do have the table open for any motion in regards to this item. Or any questions or comments.
2 questions. Are we gonna motion or? Okay.
No, questions.
What's to prevent auto repair business owners from, extending that invoice, they have to have it displayed on their vehicle, but, for 60 days, but what's to say before the 60-day expires, they extend it again? I mean, they just are pretty much a loophole to that, right? Or is there anything to prevent that? And then my second question is, what are the, measurements or proximities from where they have to, where they can be able to park their vehicles? I'm sorry if I missed any of that.
Stage and Floor Associate Planner. So Commissioner Leon, so the first question you had is concerning how the business owner would swap out the 60-day invoices. So we have, we'll be working with a code enforcement division on this, and they would be monitoring the invoices to determine, how long these vehicles has been there, just to ensure that there is a circulation of vehicles coming in and out of the yards of these businesses. And for the second question, you said how far would this standard go through? It's throughout the whole city. There's no distance, so it's for all entire of the public right of ways.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would like to place a motion to adopt resolution PC 2024-12, recommending that the city council approves the zoning code amendment number 2022-072 and adoption of ordinance number 943.
I second that motion.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote?
Sure, Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mendez,
Yes.
and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And now public comment is open for items listed on the planning commission agenda. Secretary, will you please give us instructions?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on agenda items. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the planning commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. And Chairperson, we did not receive any written comments for items listed on the agenda. And I can go ahead and see if there's anyone in the chat line wishing to speak. At this time, if anyone wishes to speak on any item on the agenda, you can go ahead and press *6 to unmute yourself. It looks like there's no one in the chat line wishing to speak on this item, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. If there's no objection by the planning commission, I will now close public participation for agendized items, which will move us over to the consent calendar. Does any member of the planning commission wish to pull out an item for separate discussion? If not, table's open for motions. Motion to approve the attached minutes on item number 5.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Planning Secretary, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez, Vice Chairperson Mendez,
Yes.
and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and we will now begin with item number 6 on the agenda. May we please have the staff report, Ms. Musayeb?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff, and public again. My name is Mona Mosaib, for the record, Associate Planner with the City of Bell Gardens Planning Division. This presentation is to discuss the California Department of Housing and Community Development Pre-Housing Designation Program. Recommendation is to receive and file the information received this evening, to consider the consideration of a resolution recommending the application, and then third, to recommend to City Council consent for application to the California Pre-Housing Designation Program. A brief background into the California Pre-Housing Designation Program, henceforth referred to as PDP. The PDP was established as a part of the state's efforts to address the significant housing crisis affecting many of its cities and communities. California has been faced with severe housing shortages for many years. The high cost of housing, the limited availability of affordable housing, and regulatory barriers have exacerbated the crisis, making it difficult for many residents to find suitable housing. The PDP is a state initiative that provides incentives to cities and counties that adopt policies to reduce barriers to housing production. A key point is that the application process itself does not commit the city to any policies or programs that have not already been adopted or enacted. A step in the application process is a self-evaluation checklist. To be eligible to participate in the PDP, a municipality must score a minimum of 30 points. And in staff's analysis of the checklist, Bell Garden qualifies for inclusion with a total potential of 33 points based on existing policies and programs that are in current development, and other policies and programs that may be developed in the future. The PDP is consistent with the city's current 2021 through 2029 housing element. The specifics are Goal 2, affordable and special needs housing opportunities. Goal 3, identification of adequate sites. Goal 4, removal of government constraints. And Goal 5, affirmatively furthering fair housing. Furthermore, pursuant to CEQA guidelines section number 15306, Class 6, information collection, this report is categorically exempt from the application of CEQA. And there is no fiscal impact, as preparation of the PDP application will be done by staff. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission first receive and file the information received. Second, consider the resolution presented recommending application to the program. And third, recommend to City Council consent for the application to the Pro-Housing Designation Program. Thank you. Staff and City Attorney are available for any questions.
Thank you very much. If we go back to the slide where we are graded in terms of points. There we go. Yes, this one. One of the lowest scoring areas is providing financial subsidies. Could we get an example as to what a financial subsidy is?
Certainly, thank you. Mona Mosiah again. So the state has actually defined these specific categories, and under those definitions, specifications, they've provided what may be counted as a policy towards financial support. So of those, for example, I'll state the ones that we do qualify for. Providing grants for low interest loans for ADUs and JADU construction, affordable to lower and moderate income housing. So we assist property owners to develop these units, but making certain that those units will be rented out to a certain population, low income, moderate rate. So it's committing to low income housing, affordable housing. The second point that we do qualify for is providing subsidies for housing affordability for extremely low income households. Again, that ties into something that we recently heard, the PLHA rental assistance program. That is something that we are currently doing. So when it comes to financial assistance, it has to do with direct financial assistance from the city to its constituents.
Thank you so much, Ms. Musiab. Commissioners, any other questions or comments before placing a motion?
Yes, I was wondering if it could be, and this may be off tangent, but a suggestion to add to that is, you know, how we are trying to help first-time home buyers and also to provide more housing in our area. Can you implement also or add on to this retainment, especially for first-time home buyers, and then down the road they might come into circumstances when it comes to property taxes, the rise on that, and just a fear of maybe not being able to pay their mortgage. If there could be like an educational piece attached to that, or to help home buyers in that process when they're having financial hardships.
So what the PDP, this is Stephen Jones, city planner, the PDP is asking for right now is just recognition of what we already do. So that is a good suggestion. And I think we can look at a couple different things. The next housing element, for example, is something we can look at, ways to retain. There's already, the state requires no net loss of affordable housing, for example. So there's more rental programs that are focused on as opposed to retaining home buying other than the state. So the state does allow some things, we could point to that. But PDP number one is just looking at what we already do. So pro housing designation will allow us to qualify for more help, more grants, more things to expand other programs. So for the purposes of this application, it may not be a part of that, but that's something we can use to expand, or the program that we're being designated as will allow us the opportunities to get the grants to expand into those types of programs. So yeah, that's definitely something we can look into for number one, the next housing element, and then to work in conjunction with what we do for first-time home buyers in terms of the Cal Home Grants. There are classes and things that they have access to be able to qualify and to put themselves in a better position to better maintain the grants they get. So we can look into that for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions, comments?
Hopefully we get that designation. So applaud you on your efforts, just because just like Mr. Jones mentioned, I know there's incentives, right? That if a city does get that designation, that they are able to qualify that other cities won't, right? So applaud you on your efforts, and then God willing, good luck.
Thank you very much. I would like to place a motion to receive and file this report and adopt resolution number 2024-17. May I have a motion? A second, sorry.
I second.
All right. Planning Secretary, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mendez,
Yes.
and Chairperson De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Public comment is now open for items not listed on the Planning Commission agenda. Secretary, will you please announce the instructions for public participation?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the Planning Commission agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone when instructed. Dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. And Chairperson, we did not receive any written comments, nor do I see anyone in the chat line wishing to speak on items not listed on the agenda.
Thank you, Planning Secretary. If there's no objection by the Planning Commission, I will now close public comments for non-agenda items. And the floor is open for staff comments.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Stephen Jones, City Planner. Let me first say before I get into my comments, the item that the Commission recommended for approval in ordinance number 943 will go before the City Council with a new public hearing at the next available City Council meeting. And the last day to appeal item number 3, which I failed to mention before, is Monday, July 8th, 5:00 p.m. here at City Hall. And the FCC's broadband access program wrapped up recently. So of the current total estimated 24,232 Bell Gardens households, 13,623 households were considered eligible. And of the eligible households, about 99%, 13,513 enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program. So while it's unfortunate that the funding for that is wrapping up, there are other programs that are allowing eligible households to continue either a lower cost broadband affordability connection, or we're also looking for other opportunities in the city to be of service in that way. Staff consulted with Public Works to have an addendum issued for the soil remediation plan at the former Burke Oil site with an unchanged bid due date of June 11th. So that was recently done and posted on the city's website. Remedial work for the former Burke Oil site is expected to be completed by December of this year. And we also received a 6-month ECRG, that's the grant used to clean up the hazardous site, an extension until December of this year. So that was exciting. And then thanks to your thoughtful consideration and recommendation, City Council indicated its intent to adopt ordinance number 944 to regulate banquet facilities in the industrial zone. And the second reading for that is anticipated this next hearing, this next City Council meeting. And then as mentioned earlier tonight, City Council approved ordinance numbers 940 and 941, which are expected to be adopted at the next council meeting also. This authorizes or would authorize the city to enter into and execute development agreements for vested development rights for 2 cannabis retail storefronts in exchange for community benefits. And a total of 7 proposals for the development of the city's climate action plan and the city's transit-oriented community specific plan around high quality transit were received, and staff is convening a selection panel to evaluate which consultants would be chosen for further interviews and ultimately recommendation for city council authorization for professional services agreement. So we'll be seeing those 2 documents developed, which is exciting for the city as well, climate action and transit-oriented community. This concludes my report. I do have Deputy City Manager Romo and Community Development Director on the line for updates as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Planning Commission, thank you for a good meeting, very professional. I know we're getting a little late in time here, so I won't take too long. I'd like to just report on our PLHA rental assistance program. It's going very well. We've got several people that have applied for it, but I'd like for you to continue spreading the word out there. Anyone that you find that needs rental assistance that's having issues, remind them that they can apply for this grant. The city is already in year 4 of the PLHA money. Initially, we started off with eviction defense and first-time home buyers. But since we had the CalHome grant, you know, the monies were then allocated towards rental assistance. So there's money for 6 to 12 months of rental subsidies. Please continue to spread that word. Also on the CalHome grant, there was 2 rounds of CalHome monies that we received, you know, close to $9 million. The first round, some of the monies we had to give back because there's not enough people that are applying for this program because of the low inventory out there. Hopefully we'll get more homes out there built. We're really trying to push to bring in more market rate and affordable housing. But even with the market rate homes, people can still apply and get, you know, up to $175,000 towards down payment assistance. That includes both CalHome and the HOP program, which is the home occupant program. So we're really trying to push home ownership. If you know anybody that is looking for a home, just to keep an eye out, but I would go ahead and have them apply for the program to just be in line with it or in line for it. Other than that, as Mr. Jones was indicating, we're continuing to move forward with the cannabis applications. So we've got a total of 7 regulatory permits that are allowed. And so far, 2 have gone to the council, and you saw 2 more come to you today. So we'll see where that takes us. But thank you very much. That's all I had.
Thank you very much. Staff, any further comments?
No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any comments? But before then, I would like to just state that I'm very grateful for our staff team and our legal team, for guiding us, helping us navigate, these items, it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Roma, I'd like to see if maybe we could expand those PHLA dollars for not just low income residents, but our homeless community in Bell Gardens, to see if we partner with local nonprofits that provide housing navigation, but if they're tied to this community, maybe those dollars can help out our homeless neighbors, so we can help them with that capital to secure housing, whether that's a deposit first month, or like you mentioned, maybe 6 months to a year, to see if we can divvy up that pot to help our homeless neighbors, and not just folks that are housed, but also think about that population as well. Just throwing it out there. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments by the commission?
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said, Commissioner, as far as city staff employees, always helpful. Thank you to our legal team. Today was a difficult meeting, long. We got through it, but thank you. Also, those who attended, thank you very much for being here. It was a long meeting, so we appreciate you all, and thank you.
Thank you so much. There's no further comments, and if there's no objection by the members of the Planning Commission, I will now adjourn the Planning Commission meeting at 8:58 p.m. Thank you.